All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another session of the Golf God Podcast, Wednesday Hot Topics. As you guys can see, we have a full panel, Pacific Islander men and women tonight. We have a great discussion, a show for you guys. Get your popcorn ready. Let's get it.
What are we arguing about?
A man is gonna do what a man wants to do.
All on your wrist. Make you my wife, you no longer my bitch.
Let's get it. My name is Will. I'm the host of this show, the number one Polynesian podcast in the world.
Dripping in Versace. All these other hoes trying to copy.
Women tend to bounce around in relationships. They can't stick and stay in a long-term relationship.
Again, don't agree with this. Just
So let's say, are you still in it? Are you still in it?
no. So you're basically saying I'm a whore.
This content is not suitable for the children under the age of 18 without adult supervision. Please be advised.
So I just wanted to take the time and make this video to apologize to absolutely nobody. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another session of the Golf Club Podcast. You guys already know my name is Will. I'm the host of this live show, number one Polynesian podcast in the world. Oh, wow. Let's get it on. We have a great show for you guys. As you guys can see, we have a full panel tonight. We have a great topic to discuss. If you're watching this right now, if you're tuning in for the very first time, thank you so much for tuning in. Always appreciate you guys. And of course, to all my subscribers out there, people to support and subscribe to my channel, thank you so much for the love and support. You guys already know what to do. If you appreciate the content, smash and press that like, subscribe button real quick. Don't forget, this is a public show. Always appreciate your different opinions and perspectives. Whether you agree or disagree, you guys already know we keep it real, unfiltered, and raw on this podcast. So, yeah, let's get the live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think. I see a lot of you guys are already on the live chat, especially MZ Carroll. Always the first one to like and subscribe every single week. Shout out to you, MZ Carroll. Thank you so much for all your support. But, yeah, let's get that live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think on the different topics that we're going to discuss tonight. And of course, show some love to the panel. Show some love to the podcast. And, of course, definitely let me know where you're tuning in from. I see you, Evil. Evil206. Hey, finally made a podcast. Hey, no worries. Thank you for tuning in already for the first time. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I see Naki already on there. Hello. I see you, Naki. Good to see you on the live chat once again. Shout out to you. Don't forget, this is a public show. A lot of you guys do reach out to me and want to be part of the conversation. I will post a link on the YouTube live chat. So if you're watching this from Facebook, if you're watching this from Twitch, I just started streaming. Shout out to Elon Musk on Twitter. So we're going to be live on Twitter. We just added that live stream, that panel for my podcast. So all the Twitter followers out there. So thank you so much. But like I said, if you want to be part of the conversation, if you have something to say, whether you agree or disagree, I know I have a lot of haters out there. All right. People will get triggered by my content. Whether you agree or disagree, I invite you to come on, be part of the conversation. I'll post a link on the YouTube live chat. It'll be pinned to the top of the screen. And definitely click on it and definitely come on and jump on and be part of the conversation. All right. I see Fob Deep, Dreadhead Dad on the live chat said, Ofalahayatu. Hey, Toko, Ofalahayatu. Thank you so much for being on the live chat and watching us. And I see Faleaka on the live chat for the first time. Can't wait to hear these responses. I see you, Salote. All right. Faleaka, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But don't forget the super chat donations. A lot of you guys support me financially with your pockets. I appreciate the donation. If you have a specific question or topic that you guys want us to discuss, ask it through a super chat donation. I definitely make it a priority and ask the guest, the panel, and you'll definitely get a response from it. And of course, every donation definitely goes back to my podcast. And of course, I'll be launching my podcast studio going into 2023. Always trying to put the work for it on you guys. But nevertheless, that's pretty much all my YouTube stuff. Let's get right into it. First and foremost, give a special shout out to the live guest, the panel for tonight. All right. We have a packed house. We're going to have a multitude of different perspectives shared tonight. I'm excited to dive in and get their perspectives for the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Thank you to all the panel. And of course, shout out to the live guests, to the live chat. Thank you so much for being on the live chat. Always appreciate you guys participating to the entire show. So much love to you guys. So get that live chat popping. I appreciate you guys always watching and supporting the podcast. and let me know what you guys think of the live chat. But nevertheless, I'm gonna ask the panel real quick. Let's go do some quick intros. I know a lot of you guys probably know who you are, but we have a lot of new people here. They may not know who you are, so if you guys don't mind, give yourself a quick intro. I'll start with the ladies. All right, I'll start with you, Salote. Go ahead and give yourself a quick intro for everybody out there.
Hey everybody, my name is Salote Wasitupumalohi. Now I finally reside in Houston, Texas, Tongan Samoan. I can't wait to learn and grow with everybody on here on this panel. It's such an honor to be on here. Thanks, Will.
All right, no worries. Salote, always a welcome. Aloha Pito, always a welcome to have you on the podcast. Let me pass it to you, Rose. Rose, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro.
Hey, I'm Rhodes I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I am Fijian, Chinese, Tongan, and Samoan.
All right, good. All right, thank you so much, Rhodes. Underground Rose, thank you for jumping on. Always a welcome to have you on here. Let me pass it to Rose. Rose, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro, Rose.
Talofa, my name is Santa Briganti. I live in Las Vegas. I'm of Tasi, half Samoan, half Hungarian. And you can find me on Instagram at Hungry Samoans. I'm glad to be here. And thank you, Will, for having us on.
The Warriors, Rose, always a pleasure to have you on, be part of the podcast. Let me pass it to you, Tui. Tui, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Tui. I am now a full-time filmmaker. I'm on social media. Don't try to find me. But if you do, be nice. Hi, Irene. Long time no see.
All right, no worries. Shout out to you, Tui. Shout out to you, man. That's inspiration. Inspiration. There we go. An inspiration. Keep it up, Tui. Thank you so much. Always a welcome to have you on the podcast. Thank you, ladies. Let me pass it to the fellas. I'll start with you. Savage, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro.
Yeah, my name is Savage Island, TikTok. Yeah, man. And I'm here on the podcast tonight to discuss our marriages failing in the community. And hopefully we can offer some solution to that. All right.
All right, no worries. Thank you so much, Savage. Always appreciate, always a pleasure to have you on, Toko. I'll pass it to you, Palofesa. Palofesa, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro.
Yeah, malo lere, everyone. I'm Daniela, or most of you know me as Palofesa. If you don't know me, you're about to. And if you know, you know. Great to be here. Great to be amongst a great panel of men and women. And look, without holding it too much time, let's get into it.
All right, Palofesa, Malopito, always a welcome to have you, Toko. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Malakai, go ahead and give yourself a quick intro. Oh,
my name is
mute.
Hi.
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Family. My name is Malakai, and I'm excited for this panel to listen to the opinions of my brothers and sisters and to be able to soak some knowledge. So I'm ready for this. Let's go.
All right, no worries, Malakai. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on, Toko. Let me read some comments real quick. I see Evo 206 said on the live chat, Savage looks crazy. This is the first time here, so that's his norm. That's his normal look. You haven't seen crazy yet. All right, no worries. Thank you so much, Evo 206. And of course, I see MZ Carol 626 said, clap. To Tui, thank you so much, MZ Carol. I know you're always a big loyal, so you've been watching us in our journey, and you've definitely seen Tui in our journey as well. So thank you so much, MZ Carol, always supporting me and also the guests on the podcast. But let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. You guys already know the topic that we're gonna discuss tonight. Why are Pacific Islanders failing in their marriages in 2022? It was interesting when I posted the promotion video on Monday. I did receive a lot of criticism from a lot of women out there that responded onto my DMs. But it was interesting also, there was a lot of women that reached out and they shared a lot of their problems in their marriages. It was very interesting for me. And the biggest thing that they shared on based on the feedback I got is a lot of times what they said is, these are the conversations we don't have. and we avoid, and it's often kind of taboo within our Pacific Islander community. So oftentimes talking about relationships, sex, marriage, partnership and dating, it's often the conversation we don't have. So I'm excited to have all you guys on the panel. A lot of you guys are married, are in relationships, so it's definitely great to have this conversation with you guys, for everybody out there that's watching, and especially the women and the men as well that reached out and wanted to share their story of why a lot of their marriages were failing, and they wish they could share the information they had, not only to their kids, but also to everybody out there in the community. So as always, let me just play a quick video. Real quick, it's a real quick 15-second video. It's just a video of a lot of the content. I see a lot of women out there on social media talk about the divorces. I don't really see a lot of men talking about it. I try to find some videos about men, but it's majority of the women just expressing their frustrations about divorce and marriage. I'm gonna play the video real quick, and then I'll definitely come back to the panel, and then we can get your initial responses to the main topic in question. So let me play the video real quick, and we'll come back to you guys.
Our old family packs.
I'm angry, but I still. Two sides to every breakup. One's a lie and one's a truth.
All right, so it was really quick, but there was a lot more videos out there. There's a lot of women out there that are posting what their frustrations on there. And of course, to all the women out there that reached out, if you're watching this right now, if you're watching the podcast right now, and I definitely would love to invite you to come on and be part of the panel, be part of the conversation, and the men as well. If you guys want to be part of the conversation, well, I think this is a great discussion to share the perspective of men and women, especially in a relationship. But yeah, let's get right into it. Let me start with the panel. What's your initial thoughts? What on the topic that we're going to discuss tonight? Why are Pacific Islander marriages failing today in 2022? So let me start with the ladies. I'll start with you, Rose. Rose, go ahead. What's your thoughts? Why do you think relationships, marriages of Pacific Islander marriages are failing today in 2022? Go ahead, Rose.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay. There is a For Real Live Facebook page Facebook page where they have Dia Lomez, and you shared that a lot of the women are sharing some of the issues that they have in the marriage, and they actually send a lot of their letters in private to their Dia Lomez to that particular live, and a lot of the concerns were infidelity. A lot of the reasons were, I think, not having a lot of family time spent, fight cover. I'm not sure if it's, they don't mention a lot of the economic factors, but more of relationship issues, cultural issues, and it's just, yeah, more of the cultural issues and family relationships, not just in a marriage, but also the extended family that's also involved in those marriages.
Okay. All right. No worries. Thank you, Underground Rose. Thank you for sharing. All right. Let me pass it to you, Hungry Someone, Rose. Go ahead and give what's your thoughts on the topic tonight? Go ahead, Rose.
I'm just going to speak from my experience because I got married young and I'm divorced. I divorced my first husband. The reason was because I got married too young. I got married too fast. So I didn't know my ex-husband at the time for that long. I didn't know him very well. Didn't realize how abusive he was until after I married him. And because I was Mormon at the time, I was pressured to marry. So yeah, and it's because we were living together. So yeah, those were the reasons why I got married and then got divorced. So I think that is prevalent with a lot of people, a lot of Polynesians, because a lot of Polys are Christian. They're expected to get married when they're with someone, especially if you've had sex. And then, you're young. A lot of women get married at a young age. And there's just a high ratio of divorce when you get married young, all around the board, doesn't matter what race you are. And then just not really knowing who we're marrying, having only dated or been with them for a short period of time. So that engagement process usually isn't long enough, or dating usually isn't long enough. So we end up marrying the wrong person. So yeah.
All right, no worries. All right, thank you, Rose. Thank you, Hungry Samoan. Let me pass it to you, Salote. Salote, what do you think? Why do you think Pacific Islander marriages are failing today, 2022?
I think there's a lot of reasons why I feel a lot of marriages are ending in the year 2022. But I think for me, my understanding and some of the discussions that I've had with some people, I feel that there's just so many things going on with social media that there's no more boundaries anymore. There's no line anymore of what is, once you're in a committed relationship or anything with somebody where that it's structured. A lot of them say like there's just so many options out there. Like, where's the boundaries? How do you draw those boundaries? It's people making decisions off of what they see on social media because it's a trend and they see that it's a glamorous life. Instead of seeing what really goes on behind closed doors in marriages. I feel that marriage is not just a lovey-dovey feely kind of thing. It's work, and you got to choose every single day to wake up and put in that work. And it takes two people. It doesn't just take one person, and so in many cases, in many discussions where I talk with people today and they're like, no, it's just one person only doing the work. And then the other person doesn't want to do it, and then two people falling out of love can cause a lot of that, conflict. But then a lot of them say is social media does play a lot into it, because now the mentality of wanting to stay committed and be in a relationship is no longer there anymore in today's society. It's more of like flexing on social media, body counts, and all of that, pleasurable things. But then those pleasurable things lead to like long-term trauma, long-term consequences. And I don't think they're ready for those consequences or know what those consequences are, until it actually happens. And then we're all left in broken pieces and broken marriages. But there's a lot, but I feel like that's been a lot of what's been coming up in the discussions that I've been having.
All right, no worries. Salote, thank you for sharing. I'll pass it to you, Tui. Tui, what are your thoughts? Why is it failing? Why is it failing out there for all the Islanders out there?
Well, Hawaiian history tells us that we were not a monogamous people. So maybe the problem that our people have is we're all hoes. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Seriously though, I was just trying to make you guys laugh. Come on. So the top 3 reasons in America that relationships and marriages are trust issues. I think that's number 1. Difference in priorities and poor communication. That's the last time I checked it was. And I just think it can be difficult. I mean, the obstacles for our people can be difficult, especially now, because I think it was Salote who said instant gratification. Was that you? Because when, our people have such I don't want to say that. Some people in our community have such poor communication skills that they don't know how to vocalize what's wrong. So they go to, this, right? And you find someone who you can relate to. But we all know that we don't relate to people. We just want to find someone to relate on that. So, because eventually, because when people cheat in our community, they tend to go back to who they're with. So it doesn't really go anywhere. They just want to find some comfort. But I think Rose said something, getting married early to people that we don't know, really. I knew my husband for about 4 weeks when we got married. I got married really young, and we stayed together almost 10 years until he passed, and in that amount of time, like, we went through, I'm just going to say hell, because we were young and we didn't know how to communicate effectively. We didn't know anything about really like budgeting, living with another person, what that's going to take. And so in the Polynesian community, it's it's common for us to find someone, because the Christian thing does a huge play in our relationship. We find someone that we think we can build a family, build something with, and we don't really know them. We marry them and we stay with them because our mentality is, well, this is my husband or this is my wife, and we just have to make it work, regardless of our priorities being different, regardless of no matter how hard we try, communication isn't there. No matter how hard we try, we don't really like each other, but we got kids, So I think it's nowadays it's easier to either leave or find some comfort somewhere else. So that's what
Okay. All right. No worries, Tui. And Tui, just to let you know, your connection is off and on a little bit. Sometimes your voice and audio, we can't hear you in and out. So if you can figure out a way to improve that a little bit, that'll definitely, when we come back to you, appreciate that. But thank you for sharing, Tui. Let me thank you so much for the ladies. Let me read some comments real quick, and then I'll definitely come to the fellas. I see Tevita Tonga Shamko here for the first time. Hey, shout out to you. He said in the live chat, he said, a religion forced you, or you choose to fall to that expectation or culture. All right, no worries. David, thank you so much for being on the live chat. Thank you for sharing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I see Haya. Haya, I see. Always good to see you in the live chat. Haya says sex is more accessible now than it was before due to social media and the internet. All right, no worries. Yeah, that is something new especially in Western society. We have to deal with the casual sex culture. And of course, Neo West. Neo West said, interesting. Good to see you, Neo West. And Bella Nice on the live chat said, I didn't get any of that. Yeah, we'll definitely get to it to fix her audio. But no worries. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody on the live chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But let me pass it to the fellas. Fellas, what do you guys think? I'll start with you, Malachi. Malachi, what's your thoughts? What do you think our Pacific Islander marriages are failing today in 2022?
Hate to break the bad news, but I think it's the fellas, to be honest. Maybe about, I can't really say numbers, but I would probably say about 80%. But then I take it back. I think a lot of people jump into a relationship because they expect someone to make them feel happy. They expect this person or who they're attracted to make them feel happy. But I don't know. I think, to be honest, man, I'm only speaking because of just for my experience. You know what I mean? That's the only reason why I target men first, because I was that person. But yeah, I think it could be lack of communications, the reason why, the cause of it. When we started speaking about, when the women was speaking about this, all I could feel like is that they were targeting me in a way, So, but it could be anything. I think a lot of people jump into a relationship super young and they don't really necessarily know what they really want until they get a little bit older. But that's just my opinion. Me, let me just say this. This is my fifth relationship. I didn't figure it out until my fifth relationship. Going from a marriage at 17 and then divorcing and then jumping into another marriage and then divorcing and jumping into another marriage. It was because I was selfish. I was a selfish person. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to. It was basically my fault. That's the only reason why I targeted the men. So, Palofesa, don't choke me out on this one, huh? I'm just speaking experience opinion. So, but yeah, so far, I'll just keep it at that, and I love to hear everybody else's. So, let's go.
All right, Malachi, thank you for sharing. And shout out to you, Doko, man, for taking accountability. Much respect. All right, no worries. And speaking of Palofesa, let's pass it on to Palofesa and let's get what he thinks. Palofesa, go ahead. What's your thoughts on the topic? Why do Pacific Islander marriages fail in 2022? Go ahead, Toko.
Look, I actually agree with Malakai. All right, when we look at the fellas. But before I even go down that road, I think for us as Pacific Islanders, relationship fails because we fail to adapt. If you look at most of us who comes from the island and explore different opportunities of life, we fail to adapt. That the environment that we're in provides so many other opportunities that we did not find back at home. So that causes a lot of tension. Now there's a culture shock in the way that we see relationship back at home and how we see it here. And oftentimes that bring a whole heap of tension to the books. Now, if you're a Pacific Islander that is growing up here in, whether it's Aotearoa, New Zealand, or over in the United States, or away from home, I think one of the biggest things that causes a lot of failures in marriages and commitment is failure to manage your expectation. Everyone has a level of expectation when they go into a relationship, and it's the failure to manage those and to express those right from the get-go. There is also another thing that is becoming more prevalent, or a little bit more, it reveals itself. When we look and analyze old couples, or traditional couples as we call it, we can understand that attraction is by nature. However, love is a choice. This is a conscious decision that every person has to make when they look at relationship and commitment. Yes, you can get attracted to anyone, but if you choose to commit and choose to be in love, it's a conscious decision, and it is a constant one to be made. A lot of people don't understand this. They fall into love and they carry on in the dating and then transition into marriages and commitment and whatnot. And for some reason, they expect this feeling to last itself without any work. When you understand that love is a choice and it's a conscious decision, it means it requires work, and it requires constant work until you are incapable of putting in the work. I see this all around me, not only in the workforce, but also people closest to me and friends, whereas I've just fallen out of love. He cheated on me, she cheated on me. That's an end outcome of a breakdown far down the line. That is an end outcome. That is not the reason why there's failure in marriages. The failure is that no one manages their expectation, and especially for men, as I have seen it so far, is that we are unable or incapable of saying to a woman, look, I'm pretty shit. These are my shit quality as a man, and you're probably going to hear this and walk away. But if you give me the opportunity to make this work, I promise you I'll work on myself. It is not going to be easy. However, if you give me that chance, I'll make sure that it's worth your while. Every time I hear someone, a man in particular, who admits his own fault to a woman in terms of trying to initiate commitment, that person has always started with a good foundation. You reveal all your bad traits. What else have you got? The good now starts to be built on. So look, without going even further, we fail to adapt first and foremost, and not only that, most men can't manage the expectation. We settle for women because we operate out of a mindset of scarcity, and then when we do find the woman that we want to be with, we lack the accountability to put in the work.
All right, no worries, Palofesa. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate what you shared, what you just shared right now. Shout out to you. And I see Ness, thanks so much for jumping on to public guest. I'll definitely come back to you to share your thoughts. Don't forget, I just posted the public link. As you guys can see, we invite public guests. So if you want to click on that link and be part of the conversation, men and women, definitely would love to get the men and the women as well to be part of the conversation. Shout out to you guys. All right. Nevertheless, let me pass it to you, Savage. Savage, what are your thoughts on the topic? Why do you think Pacific Islander marriages are failing today in 2022?
Damn, this is really tough because I don't know for sure the numbers, the statistics, or the facts behind that, right? I don't know, and whoever the fuck is like really paying attention to Pacific Islander marriages, bro, you must not have any fucking hobby or shit to do in your spare time because we as PIs are still trying to get our footing down here as first generation speaking as an American. Like I really don't know if we're failing, but I do know this around me personally, in my experience. Oh, we're failing. We're fucking up, bro. We're massively fucking up. It's so bad to the point where I've secluded myself from friends and family because it's like a fucking plague. Don't touch me with that shit. I don't want a fucking divorce, or I don't want to look at my wife as a promiscuous woman, or whatever your perspective is in your experience. Get the fuck away from me. I don't want none of that shit. Because the minute you infect my mindset, my mind and body, spirit, now I become a part of the generality. Right? I start looking at my wife like how you look at your wife, or I start looking at my husband the way you look at your husband. And then next thing you know, we're all in a fucking pity group where we're like, oh my God, I can't seem to pleasure him. Shut the fuck up. Suck my dick. Get out my face, bitch. Like for me, honestly, in my personal experience around my circle, I can only honestly say expectations, pressure, priorities, and external advisory, right? You begin to listen to what everybody else is going through. You put yourself in their shoes. You take your eye off the ball, and the ball is your relationship. Focus on your shit. Go through your experience. Walk your path. Because the minute you start hearing about, Tala's fucking relationship, Tala, and whoever Tala is, I'm using it as a hypothetical. Tala gets her ass beat every fucking day from her husband. That's not to joke around with. This is an example. And Tala keeps going back. But Tala comes to you for fucking advice, hoping that she would try to make her feel better and help her situation. You can't do that. You could possibly make it worse and get Tala killed. Get the fuck away from that. If Tala won't learn and get the experience to get the strength and walk away, then you're going to hurt me too when something bad happens to you and I have to step in. I say that in experience because in a lot of ways, even my sisters aren't innocent. There's a lot of shit they've done. I've done, right? And then even other situations where you see infidelity and you don't want to hurt your friend or your family. That's wrong. He or she shouldn't be doing that. But I know if I speak up on it, it's going to look, suspicious. Like, why the fuck are you worried about my relationship? Why are you doing this? I know that by experience. But the worst case scenario is the expectations of the culture or religion, right? Oh, you're getting older. Please, you have to marry him. I need grandchildren, please, right? Or son, come on. Everybody thinks you're gay now. Like, do you even want to get married and all this shit? Like, all that shit piles up and puts pressure on us to act because of the environment rather than thinking about what do I want and what benefits me in this, right? You start watching the podcasts, and no pun intended. You can watch this podcast, that's fine. You start listening to the TikToks and shit. Man, I just seen this video about talking about how like 3 out of every 5 females have contemplated cheating on you with your brother. That's what the fuck does that have to do with me? If you're looking at my brother that way, well, shit, we come from a good-looking dad. You know what I'm saying? But you start worrying about external advisory. Next thing you know, anything and everything you hear affects the fucking relationship. The worst part is priorities, bro. Priorities. You must handle your priorities. The tradition is, God, me, and my lover, and everyone else. Yeah, respectfully, hey, that's cool. But in 2022, the dynamic has changed. The dynamic has changed. So now it's about adapting and how you two adapt, or in most cases, no shot at polygamists, but however many of you, brother, husbands, sister, wives, whatever, hey, more power to you. But communication, bro, you got to fucking talk. Like, I know that's hard in our culture. Trust me, I get it. It is fucking hard because we are very traditional mindset. I don't need to talk about my problems. I'll go to the Kalapu and I'll inu tonight, right? And then you come back the next day, and what happened? Nothing happened because now you piled on more problems, and now your wife has to hear it. And when your wife hears it, she comes tells me, and now I gotta come talk to you, bro. Hey, bro, what the fuck's wrong with you? Your sister, she always, yeah. Bro, come on, man. So I say all that once again is inexperience. I don't know for sure if our marriages are failing in majority, but I do know this. In my circle, bro, whenever I hear, oh, we're thinking about divorce or we're doing this, or get the fuck away from me, bro. Just get away from me. Because the minute I begin to hear it, it catches on like shit, and now I'm covered in shit, and anybody I get around is covered in shit. Just keep your shit to yourself, all right? It's none of my business. So there's that.
All right, Savage. All right, Malo. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me pass it to Ness. Ness, thank you so much for jumping on, be part of public guest. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Now, what are your thoughts? Why do you think the Pennsylvania marriages are failing today, 2022?
Can you guys hear me? I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, you're good.
Man, I should have jumped on after Savage went on because I don't know how I can follow that up, man. What a beast. The way I look at it is, right. I think when we're saying the Polynesian marriages are failing in 2022, I think we got to take out the Polynesian for now and just focus on human beings, right? Like 70% of all divorces are filed by women or something like that, right? Okay, we understand that. We understand men can be, a-holes. We know that we have our stuff that we need to work on internally to fix our homes type stuff, vice versa with women. Now, when we're talking about Polynesians, I agree with Savage. If we're looking at the data, which I don't know what the hell the data is. I don't know if you said it earlier, Will, but I think the reason why these marriages are failing, so to speak, is I think it's because of the way that we were brought up. Something you said something earlier about, the boundaries. There's no boundaries now, right? Most of us, the majority of us on this panel are first generation Polynesians, wherever you're coming from, American Polynesians, right? So, our parents came from Tonga or Samoa or wherever it is, and they birthed us. So our traumas that we got from our parents traumas that we got from them, now we're putting it on our kids. So when we're growing up and we're having kids out of wedlock, or when we're doing all this other stuff and we're out in the streets in the modern day America or wherever you're at, that's outside of our heritage, we don't know what the hell we're doing. So finally, when we're in our 30s, finally when we're in our late 20s, or whatever, however old we may be, for us to finally click in our head, like, oh shoot, I did this wrong. I messed up. It's coming down to the fact that we have to acknowledge what we did wrong and making sure that we pass it on to our kids so they don't make the same mistakes with us. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, no worries. Ness, thank you so much. Hey, thank you for jumping, sharing as a public guest. Let me read some comments real quick and I'll come back to the panel. Let's open up for open discussion. Anything you guys want to add on? Maybe something you disagree, and I'll open up for you guys. But let me read the comments real quick. I see Neil. I see John Payne. I think John Payne here for the first time. Thank you so much for being part of the live chat. He said they are failing OOS because it's a new generation problem and more choice to be, honestly. All right, John Payne, thank you so much for being on the podcast for the first time. Shout out to you. Neil West said most definitely the men. Just kidding. No worries. I do agree. I think that as men, as strong men, as leaders, I think we have to put that accountability on our shoulders. No worries. And Underground Roads, it said Auntie Tala. And to all the Talas out there tonight, much love to you. Much love to you. No worries. And thank you so much, everybody in the live chat. I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you guys think. And I see you about 18, 20 people on the live chat right now. I got to call you guys out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You got to make sure those likes match the people that's watching this right now. So definitely press that like and subscribe button real quick. And don't forget, if you want to jump on, be part of the podcast, men and women, click on that public link and to join the conversation. So let me get back to the panel. What do you guys think? Let's open up for open discussion. Anybody want to add on? Just go ahead. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Salote. You want to say something?
No, Palofesa, you go for it.
Oh.
It's sort of a sidetrack, but I keep hearing this word trauma keeps coming up consistently. And the reason why I really have a big dislike for that word is oftentimes when it's used in the context of parent passing on qualities that we do not enjoy taking on and we see it as a negative, we often associate it with the word trauma. And I can understand why, but I refute it. And I refute it in the sense that I understand the generation older than me has had their limitation. And the limitation of their ability to be parents, to be good role models for me, is where I find the refinery to the process. Whatever that may be to you, whatever that may be to me. Look, trauma to me is such a crippling word that people use and they stop there, rather than looking at it as, look, generation prior to us had limitations and they passed on that limitation to us as a way of trying to protect us. Hence why there's a Tongan word of ko ta'i koe, ko ngā ko ofaya koe. That is a limitation of their capability as parents. It is my job as the generation of now to figure out that limitation and to pass on something that is more valuable to my children. Maybe I don't hit you. Maybe I actually become the role model that my father lacked at the time, and his only output of trying to keep me on a narrow path was to throw me against the wall and to profess his love to me. That's the reason why. My way of communicating my love to my son is actually being the model of values that I'm trying to pass on to him. The whole thing with marriages and relationship, we have, and I agree with everyone in the sense of what is causing us to separate at a very large scale. We can look global or we can look Pacific Islander, whichever one you want to put a metric on. But I think a lot of people just lack expectations being managed. When you do not manage your expectation, it leads to long-term damages. You hear a lot of men saying, oh, I can't talk to my wife about that. But at some stage, you were the man that she fell in love with because you were able to say the things that you wanted to say. But it got to a point where somewhere along the way we thought, oh, if I say what truly needs to be said, I'm going to lose her. So we failed to manage our own expectation. From then on, everything else builds on that. And this is why I'm not going to challenge you, Malakai, because I wholeheartedly agree with you when it comes to leadership and men. If you look at the reason why a lot of divorces is happening and why women are initiating it, is because we no longer match the same degree of endeavor that women are now carrying on. They're more educated. I'll bite that they're unhappy if the stat says that, but they're more educated. They're punching above their weight in terms of financial means. And look at where we are as men. Have we improved as peers? Have we pushed each other to improve as peers? Whether it be entrepreneur, whether it be intrapreneur, have we pushed each other to the degree that we should be pushing ourselves? So I'll leave it at that. And welcome to be challenged.
All right, no worries. Palofesa, thank you for sharing. And I see Dunda Time on the live chat said, not that I beat you because I love you. All right, no worries, no worries. Another time, thank you so much for being on the live chat. I think, don't forget to like, subscribe. Ness Palofesa was responding to you. Do you want to respond back to him on what he said? What do you think, Ness?
Yeah, no, I think you make great points. I mean, I think for me, the way I look at it as far as the whole trauma thing that you were saying earlier, I mean, for me, when my parents came over from Tonga, everything that I've ever learned was from my mom and my dad, or from my four older sisters, right? So, and they're way older than me. So I have like the next one next to me is probably like 12 years older than me. So she has all this knowledge of how my parents came up and when I was like more younger. So when all that information gets passed on to me, and now that I'm a little bit older, I can now look back at 33 years and be like, shoot, yeah, I should have never done that. Oh, shoot, I should have never treated her like that, or I should have never acted like this. So my whole thing was like, it's traumatizing for me, because when I look back and I see my parents' relationship, I see, and I see all different relationships around me, because I'm the youngest one. I'm just like, dang, like I don't want to end up like that. So let me flip it a little bit to Palofesi's point. I have to now change my mindset to like, let me help out the younger generation. Let me help out my nephews, nieces. Let me help out my kids. If the good God blesses me upstairs, that I get an opportunity to have kids, So stuff like I agree. I agree with some majority of the stuff you was talking about.
All right, no worries, Ness. Thank you for sharing. Malachi, did you want to add on or respond to what Palofesa said? Go ahead, Malachi.
No, he hit it right on target. And yeah, I think the expectations, that's what the women hold a lot too. You know what I mean? Like for a majority of the men that jump into a relationship at 18, their expectation is to have a wife at home. You know what I mean? Their expectation is to, because of the example that was probably set before, you know what I mean? Is sometimes seeing the dad going fight almost every single night, you know what I mean? Like things like that, it could fall into place, but the thing is like for men, especially at a young age, jumping into that relationship, and if they have that background, that's my background. Most people don't have that background, right? But I can only speak because of just me growing up and my background. Growing up Sastonga, like that was basically it, and I did it too. I jumped into a relationship and I did it exactly the same, but when I hit a certain age, I had to break that cycle. My older kids seen me go through that cycle. My older kids see me, but then I had to learn and I had to figure it out myself, and I had to try to break that cycle. My kids younger now, they just see me. I just go to work, come home, and just chill. That's a different dad that they see now. You know what I mean? Which before, if I got boy every single night, out every single night. You know what I mean? But with the relationship failing in 2022, I can't really speak on that. You know what I mean? Like every relationship is different. Sometimes it's the men, majority is the men, but sometimes I gotta push it on the women too. You know what I mean? Expectations are way too high out there. It's like, man, and at the same time, we are not mind readers. We are not mind readers. You know what I mean? Most of the women, they just sit there and they cross their hand and just expect us to understand what they're going through. You know what I mean? But to be honest, I don't even know. I'm pretty sure majority of the men is not going to know what's going on in your head. But yeah, that's just all I got to chime in about.
All right, we can guess. We can make a hypothetical guess, but we never know. But yeah, thank you, fellas. Let me pass it to the ladies. Ladies, anything want to add on to the open discussion? Go ahead, Rose. Go ahead, Rose.
So there's about 70, and they did a study, it's about 70% of women are the ones that initiate divorce. And the three top reasons was that women feel stifled. They're growing more and men are not as growing at the level that we want. And granted, most of the divorces are initiated by educated women. So one is that they feel stifled by growth. Two is that they feel more emotional pressure, like they have to take on more emotional responsibility. And the third is that they're less tolerant. So they're just not going to put up with it. So looking at today's age in modern times, I mean, you do see that if women have more choices and they're not as fearful of their family, judgment from their family, they have higher emotional intelligence. Men are more likely to cheat because of the more choices out there, and and it's easier to cheat. And also just the independence of women, not having to depend on a man because we can take care of ourselves. These are all the reasons why divorce is more prominent. And so I'm guessing with Polynesian culture, it's very similar. So yeah.
All right, no words, Rose.
I got to challenge that. I've got to challenge that.
Go ahead,
What's the metric of dictating these? I know the study, I know the numbers, and I know the reasons, but there is no mention of what led up to that. Yes, you felt stifled. Yes, you felt, you've outgrown your man. Was there any communication? How did you pick these men? Why did you pick these men? Right? So, yes, these are all valid reasons why women initiate divorces, but it takes two to tango. It really does. And if we're just going to use that as a metric to say, look, I'll put the accountability on my fellow men. No way, no, there's no two ways about that. But also at the same time, there's a big lack of communication, even as far as women try to argue that, oh, we communicate all the time. Your ways of communicating is huffing and puffing, closing your hand and giving him the silent treatment. That is no communication at all, right? So look, the data is out there and we know the reasons why, but it's an end outcome. It's not the main reason why relationship fail. They fail because a lot of us fail to realize that to love someone is to wake up every morning and say, maybe not your best day, but I still choose to love you. I choose you every day. Maybe you're not in the place that I really want you to be. I still love you, but I'm going to sit down with you and communicate that with you. Damn, you did something I didn't like, but guess what? I made that decision. I'm still going to love you, but we're going to have a discussion about this. Right? So, I'll leave it at that.
All right, no worries. Go ahead, Salote. Go ahead, Salote.
Okay. Oh man, how do I say this, Matt? So I totally agree with what everybody has been saying and talking about. As far as like marriage in communication in a marriage, I agree. Women can do a lot better in communicating. As much as I want to speak on other women, I can only speak on myself and my experience and how there's certain things that have happened. I can honestly say, like in marriage, just like Palofesa said, right? You get to wake up every single day and choose whether you love or not to love. And I believe that in marriage, you go through so many different seasons. And I don't think that a lot of us are ready to go through those seasons, especially like when you're getting married really young. There is so there's going to be a season. If you're getting married, you're having kids, your wife is going to be big. Can you love her in that season? There's going to be a season where your man can't hold it down for a minute. Maybe he lost his job. Maybe something's going on. And like a lot of people can't hold like during those seasons. Can you guys hold each other up? And I think that a lot of people have forgotten in what my, what I've seen so far is like, it's two people and everybody else comes after, which brings up to that topic of where it's like, where do we draw that line? Because like when two people get married, I've heard that thing where it's like, if you marry somebody, you marry the whole family.
Right? Fuck that. Oh shit, was I unmuted? Oh fuck.
Right. But wait, Savage, you said it for me. Okay. And I think I can honestly say for me, I think that's a mistake I made. I can just like Malachi speaking his own story. The mistake I made was it was never just us. It was us plus the whole village. And when you have when it's not just you two who are solid and it's the whole village, that those voices come. I think somebody said it in the comment section, Certified said it, like it gets into your marriage that you can't learn each other. You can't go through that struggle with each other because you won't get to know each other. You'll get to know the person everybody else is putting in your mind. And so for me, I honestly feel like as a woman, like our communication could be better. It is kind of hard as a woman to express it because we are emotional creatures in a lot of ways. But like I also have women in my life who keep me accountable too and who tell me straight up like, look, you out of pocket for that. Like, get your big girl panties on. Like, no, that's not something that you need to be talking to your man about. That's why you have your girlfriends to talk to about that. And move on from there. But like I said, I also love how the men are taking accountability as well.
All right, no worries, Salote. Thank you for sharing. No, Rose, I know Palofesa responded to you. Rose, did you want to respond to Palofesa on what he said? He challenged you a little bit. Go ahead, Rose, if you want to.
Oh, shit.
Rose, hungry someone. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I think we can go on to the next question.
All right.
Can I say something? Can I chime in?
Go ahead, underground. Go ahead, underground roads.
I think a lot of the women also set themselves up for failure because you create this fairy tale narrative. And so you expect the men to know that this is your fairy tale narrative, right? They don't know that. And so that sets up an expectation because this is the narrative we haven't let go of. Their narrative is different. They don't even know that we're running the same narrative in our head. So we set ourselves up for failure and we just fail to admit that because a lot of us spring up thinking, oh, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have this big fancy wedding, such and such and such. And then when it really happens, it's not like, and you're in the thing of plus once the honeymoon is over, and then all of a sudden your narrative is disrupted. So at the same time, women need to call it what it is. Because a lot of times you keep on saying that, okay, it's the men's fault. We need to own our own shit. You know, it's like, well, these are my expectations. Are they your expectations? Or are they your parents' expectations? Or is it this expectation set by the church? What is it about you? I mean, a lot of the times, like I asked the question, what defines you? Like, what defines a male? You know, we just need to like get rid of that narrative, the fairy tale, and get real, because that was in Disney. This is real life. Disney doesn't apply in reality. That's just all I had to say.
Yeah, well, can I add on to that, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Ness.
So
Thank
I,
you,
I agree,
Robert.
and I think, you know, that's where when the question is asked, Polynesian marriages, right? Exactly, that is because now the culture gets involved, right? How many 18-year-old men and women are getting married because one is expecting, right? The woman's expecting, so next thing you know, the dad's calling old girl's dad. Oh, hey, I heard what happened. Whoop de whoop. Next thing you know, hey, let's go to the courthouse. 2 weeks later, boom, you're married. Daughter or son comes out. 2-3 years later, they split, right? So I think for me, when I look at it in whole, is that we didn't fully understand when we were younger making these dumb decisions. We didn't understand what marriage is. We don't understand the sacred and the holy, the spiritual version of why marriage is so sacred to us, right? Even regardless if you believe in God or whatever religion that you believe in or whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is marriage is sacred, or it should be sacred. So what ends up happening is we take it for granted. We're just like, oh man, my grandma's pressuring me. I gotta marry this girl, or I don't want to disrespect my family by having this kid and not be married. Because us as Tongans, that's a part of the 4 pillars, a part of the Kavekola. The fourth one, Tauhi, or shoot, I forgot what it was called, but is to I had it, but I'll look it up later. But yeah, that's part of one of the 4 pillars of being Tongan, the Kavekola, is being respectful, being loyal, and being commitment. So I just wanted to add that on.
All right, no worries. Ness, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's facts. Savage and Tui, I know I want to give you guys some time. Anything you guys want to add on real quick?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep smiling at all of you guys, but everything you guys are saying, I just keep laughing because it just makes me realize like how awesome our relationship is. Yeah, like seriously, everything you guys are saying, I'm like, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, we're good. So I don't have anything to add on, but I do. Somebody in here said it. I think it was. I'm sorry, Malachi. Is that you? Yeah. You said something about it, and I think it's like spot on. As soon as our people can get out of this, what is it? Like an old world way of thinking, where she's pregnant, so we gotta get married, and we start telling our children earlier, if you're gonna have sex, I don't like that, but use protection. As soon as we start having those conversations, and we stop saying, oh, she's knocked up, so you gotta get married, I think then we can go somewhere,
All right, no worries, Tui. I think Pat, thank you for sharing. And Savage, did you want to add on anything? You want to add on real quick?
No, I just wanted to apologize to Salote. I didn't mean to outburst like that. I really thought my mic was muted. But on that topic, bro, if it's 2022, if you're still using, when you marry my Torah, you marry the family, then bro, where y'all at when she be tripping, right? Where y'all be at when she's hungry and I can't provide, right? When I'm sitting in between jobs trying to figure shit out, why don't you come get your daughter, right? Because I'll tell you right now, I ain't got no problem with y'all living with us. I mean, shit, if we're all a family, let's keep it in the family. Really, like that to me is like really played out. The sentiment of, you marry me, you marry the family, because, it's the morality of it is good, right? That the family will always be there for you. But 9 times out of 10 is the family is the problem. That's why. That's why you have to get away from me, because I married her And I don't know who the fuck you guys are, but you just came in. So, but that's just my experience. No specific person am I calling out. But yeah, man, stop using that. Stop, please.
All right. No worries, no worries, Savage. Let me read some comments real quick, and I'll definitely come back to the panel. There's some things that a lot of people reach out to me. I want to discuss with you guys something they think that's lacking within our Pacific Island community. I see John Payne on the live chat. He said the Palofesa, like you say, expect your wife to be able to do a Z, but then they are not met. You're gonna have to deal with the low expectation. All right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that, John Payne. I see Bella Nice Malanga on the live chat said, marrying the family is the most toxic run. I married one man and one man only. If his family wants to marry him, then I'm outie. All right, no worries. All right, no worries. Bella Nice, I see Neo West on the live chat. Neo West said, I don't think it's only expectations, but what are your values? What are your morals? All right. That's interesting. That'd be a good conversation. Are we losing the morality? What's the state of morality and values within our Pacific Islander community? All right, because we definitely all live in Western society where it's kind of diminishing in Western society. Oh, I see Michael Collins here for the first time on the live chat. Shout out to you, Michael Collins. It said church, LOL. Shout out to you, man. Thank you so much for being on the live chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. But yeah, let's get back to the panel. I want to move on to the next topic that's related to the main topic. One of the things a lot of men and women that reach out to me on my other social media platforms when they responded to the video, they said that one of the things that we struggle with in the Pacific Island community, especially when it comes to relationships and marriage, is the lack of communication. A lot of us, we grow up with our parents, depending on how you guys grew. I grew up in a very traditional, tough love tongue parents. So a lot of times they said that the communication part, the men do what they do, women do what they do. I know a lot of you guys talked about the men go fight kava and don't really communicate why the men do what they do, and then resentment builds in the relationship. So obviously a lot of you guys, we're all first generation Pacific Islanders. We kind of, like Palofesa said, we look at our parents, we can learn from our parents of the limitations of what they had, and then we can improve on it and work on the things, improve our relationships so it doesn't pass on. All right. But what's your thoughts on communication? What did you see with your with your parents? What did you learn? How do you apply it with your own relationships to improve that? Because we all know communication is important. Because men and women, we see things differently. We react to things differently when it comes to relationships. But if we just sit here and don't communicate, and like Palofesa said, a lot of you ladies just huff and puff and give us a silent treatment. And for the fellas, when we feel that, we just go to our man cave and we go to fight kalapus, we play video games, or we go away, we go to the boys too. That's where we feel feel safe and comfort. So obviously there has to be some kind of communication to talk about the problems, and if we don't talk about it, then obviously it's going to make it worse, and obviously end to the outcome where we divorce. And I do agree, if you get divorced or if your relationship fails, it was accumulation of many decisions that happened 6 months, a year, 2 years past that you didn't address, and then finally somebody had their limitation. I'm done with this. I'm out. Whatever, it's the man or woman. But like Nick said, 70-80% of divorces is initiated by women. All right. So I want to focus on communication. Let me start with the ladies real quick, and let me start with Tui. Tui, you're having you don't have those problems. So I'd love to hear from Tui. Tui, what's your thoughts on communication as Pacific Islanders? We know that's something that we definitely need to improve on from the older generation. But what are your thoughts about communication? How does that apply, especially for us, and why does it fail in our relationships? Go ahead, Tui.
First of all, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Second of all, ladies, get someone younger than you, at least more than 7 years. That way, you can teach them good habits after you work on your damn self. Because us Polynesian women, no matter how much we can fucking handle, we suck at communication. For those of you who don't, for those of you who do and had to learn the hard way, get it together. Stop talking to your girlfriends about it and drinking in the closets, What you need to do is stop talking about it and be about it. Work on yourself. Find someone who you can see yourself with long term. No, they're not going to be perfect. That's why you help them. You need to be there to push them and help them grow. And if they are not in that mindset, then move the fuck on. Don't complain about it. Don't complain about it. You're gonna spend the rest of your life as a lonely cat lady with nobody by your side, watching Lifetime eating bonbons. Me and Sarah work because he's a man's man, right? He wants to take care of shit himself. I can take care of him. We work together well. We have a lot in common. Business, we have the same mindset of where we want to go. We talked about that. Anything that he doesn't like to communicate with, honestly, I'm good at reading head nods, and like moods. As women, we just got to get good with that stuff. You're not going to get a perfect guy, but it's your job to know your partner. That goes both ways. Anyway, for anyone complaining about their relationship, if you consistently complain about the same thing over the course of 90 days and you have not done a thing about it, it's not your relationship. It's you.
All right, no worries. Tui, I love it. John Payne on the live chat said, Tui, so just basically marry someone your son's age, basically. Right.
You got it.
No
Man. You got it.
Thank you so much.
Wait, Will, when you cut out my face to put it on Instagram, can you not make me look like I'm just like a monster head about to eat everybody else in the back?
I got you, Tui. All right, no worries. Thank you, Tui. All right, and yeah. Let me pass on to the other ladies. Let me go to you, Salote. What do you think? Communication. Let's talk about that. That's one of the things that's a lot of people are saying that we're struggling as a people. What are your thoughts on communication in marriages and relationships?
I think the comment section said it perfectly. Like, we do suck at communicating. Women really do feed off and go off of their feelings, and we do have that high expectation of they should already know. As far as communicating, in an experience that I've had before, it's important because if two people aren't willing to grow together, if one decides to grow and the other doesn't, it's kind of like a dead relationship. But it can only grow if you start communicating, tell each other what does bother. But we're never taught that. We were never taught that. And as much as we want to go and blame the parents and talk about all of that in the past, like there has to be a time where we take responsibility for our own actions and what we know. Once you become a grown adult, I feel like you should know like wrong from right and how to get out of it and how to work through it. Even through the trauma, like we're freaking in America. Like there's so many ways that you can grow and get help and have all these different resources. And yet we continue to just keep pointing the finger and blaming and using things as a crutch. And so straying away from that, and back to communication. Oh man, sorry for pausing. It kind of hits home for me in a way where I can say, sorry. When you have that high expectation and not communicate it, you tend to break apart something that was, once was beautiful, and I'm airing out my own dirty laundry. And, I hear that when you do that, it dries faster, and so for me, like what I did was, dang it, man. Shouldn't have had me on this, Will. But I had my own bad habits and my own issues that when a great man came in my life and he started to be great, it wasn't at my expectation. And because it wasn't there and I didn't communicate it to him, I expected him to know things. I criticized and tore apart almost every little thing he did, to the point where it was almost as if it was a dead end. It didn't matter what he did. It didn't matter how he did things. It just wasn't pleasing to me, and it wasn't because of, him per se. It was me not talking to him and communicating. It was me having him try to be here and pretend like everything was going to be perfect in a marriage. I think that like communication starts off with you knowing what you want in a marriage, where you want to go in a marriage, how you want this marriage to go, and communicate it towards each other. I think when you have two people who are just always like, one thinks that marriage is supposed to go this way and the other thinks it's supposed to go this way, you're going two different separate directions. You ain't meeting in the middle at all, have no communication at all. And it gets to a point where you start drifting apart. And then when you guys both start to commit infidelity and start causing things to hurt each other, it all started off with just you two, your communication where it was supposed to start in the beginning. But it comes back to where your faith is, where your morals and what your values are, and when you forget that, because of your own selfish wants. Men are selfish, but I feel women are selfish as well, because we want this perfect fairy tale, like what I think it was Underground Roads who said it, like, it's not Disney, we grew up listening to R&B, all that slow jam. Guess what? Those were all lies. Okay, no man's gonna come and sweep you off your feet and do all that stuff for you. It's gonna take work, They might be singing those songs, but I think those are for other purposes in your relationship, And so as far as like communication, it is very, very important. And I think that's something that caused a lot of strife in my own relationship and my own marriage, was that communication. And that communication needs to be between two people. I made so many mistakes of going and trying to talk to other people, getting other people involved, and it only just tore down everything else, But the one advice that somebody gave to me is like, if you're talking to somebody, make sure that they're the ones uplifting you to be a better person, to go in the right direction, to see the best in your partner, in your husband, in your spouse, and then work through it and go back and work through it and not just be a part. Anyways, there's more to it, but we'll end at that.
No worries, Salote, and I really appreciate being genuine and sharing what you shared tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me pass it to you. Underground Rose. What are your thoughts? Why do we fail as a people, especially Islanders, when it comes to communication in our relationships and marriages? Go ahead, Underground Rose.
I think self-knowledge is an empowering thing. If you really don't know who you are, how can you help someone else? So the hard part is when two people are not healed and you're coming together and you're trying to work together to heal each other. It's still going to be a lot of work, especially if you don't know each other well. What I learned, because in our home, the conflict resolution part, when your parents are having conflicts or disagreements, it was never modeled in my home, So I think sometimes they went to the bedroom and they resolved that, they talked it out, and then they came back out. I wish I had learned that. I wished I had learned conflict resolution to be able to solve something, to be able to build perspective and gain some understanding from two people on how they try and solve, the issue, whatever it is, as a kid. And so I wish I had learned that, to be able to model that to my children. And so what I've done was I've been able to create that with them. So they're able to build that level of communication with their children. But for me, I'm going to disclose my own. My first divorce, let's just say I married someone who wasn't healed. And so when you have someone who is very well-rounded and knows themselves really well, it's hard to deal with someone that is not healed, in a sense that I felt like I was married to someone that was struggling to be himself in front of me, like almost like an imposter. And so it was really, really hard to even resolve some things, because there were some things that he needed to fix. And I was just struggling to try and keep this marriage together Because that's how I grew up, knowing that you work these things out. You don't get divorced, right? You get married to not get divorced. But that was the end of my fairy tale. And shit happens and you keep going. But again, I've learned to know more about myself, to identify if I'm looking for a new mate, whether that guy is healed or not. That's what I've learned about myself. Because if you're really healed, you can tell when someone is healed. It's easy to, what I say, kind of pick up people's intentions and agenda, especially if you're dating as a woman. When you're healed, you kind of know, you kind of pick that up right quick when you're not gonna sacrifice your standards for what they want from you. And so for me, the boundaries are very clear. I communicated that very clear now as a mature woman. I state that very, very clear. At first, I set my expectations, not my expectation, but I tell them straight up, hey, this is me. I'm not gonna forego my standards for you. And if you still want to carry on and be my friend or whatever is, then that's great. If you don't, then that's fine with me. I think that comes with maturity. Does that make sense? You just let shit go and you keep going. That's just me. You bounce back and like water for ducks back, and you find someone else. And like Tui said, we need to get someone younger, right, Tui? Yeah, but
right.
that's effective communication is so important. Listening is so important. Perspective building, understanding each other, respecting each other, suspending judgment. Does that make sense? Hearing them out, trying to understand. I think we're missing a lot of those little, some people say soft skills sometimes, but it does matter.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Underground Rose, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Let me pass it to Rose, and then we'll come back to the fellas. Rose, Hungry Samoans, what's your thoughts about communicating? Go ahead.
So I don't think there's a lack of communication, but more miscommunication. We're not understanding each other's love languages. We stop paying attention to each other. We should listen more, talk less. Women are great communicators with each other, not with men, because our languages are different. So if we get advice from professionals instead of family members who are single, that helps. We can get also advice from basically just research. There's so much information now. We're in the information era that there's no excuse for not learning how to communicate better. Really just comes down to trust. Like for me, my experience, I've never really had issues with communication in my first marriage or my second, but I did have communication issues with my third because we had that lack of trust, and that was a barrier. So it was just it got to the point where, well, I don't want to say anything because you can use it against me. So I'm just going to shut you out. And so there was no way to come to some kind of, we just didn't have, it was closed off. So we didn't even talk. And so that right there, you can't fix anything if you don't talk about it. But you can't talk about it if you don't trust each other to talk about it. So yeah, that's it.
All right, Rose. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, Rose. I'll read some comments real quick, and I'll definitely come back to the fellas. I see John Payne. John Payne said, man, this is awesome. Didn't know there was a poly podcast. All right, no worries, John Payne. Thank you for finding my podcast. Definitely check out our Masculine Fridays. We talk about masculinity and dating show on Saturdays. I see Liti from Facebook. Hey, what's up, Liti? Always good to see you, Liti, in the live chat. Say hi, babe. All right, no worries. Always good to see you, Liti, in the live chat. And Certified 91 on the live chat said when women bottle shit up and men have a mind your damn business attitude, straight up. All right, no worries. And I also see Lissy in the live chat. Good to see you, Lissy. Always a pleasure to see you in the live chat. Said communication with comprehension. All right. That sounds like a Palofesa quote. Norris, thank you so much. Lacey, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget there's a public show. Click on that link if you definitely want to jump on. Definitely want to hear from more men and women. Fellas, let me pass it to you guys. You guys got a chance to hear from the women. Obviously, we all understand, fellas, men and women, we communicate things differently. I would definitely love to hear what your thoughts on it. Let me start with you, Malachi. What's your thoughts about communication and why that often is lacking or fails in our relationships as Pacific Islanders? Go ahead, Malachi.
So I think communication is broken at the dating state, right? Because then we jump into a relationship, then we say, man, we got communication problems. It's like people should have voiced who they are at the beginning. People should have asked those questions. If this is someone that they look into and be like, man, I want to spend my life with this person. Maybe you should ask those questions because maybe they'll answer you right there and then you could get your answer and then you can move on and start looking again. But I think communication, the biggest thing is broken right when we jump into the dating stage. You know what I mean? Because maybe we're blinded by lust, because we're blinded by the looks or whatever it is, and we stop that communication. And all of a sudden, we jump in a relationship and we start tearing this person down because we have expectations now. And then we say, "Oh yeah, he's lack of communication and this and that." But yeah, that's just my thoughts about communication. I think communication needs to happen at the dating stage. You know what I mean? Rose did bring up some good things about the love languages is also, something that people got to figure out at the beginning of the stage. You know what I mean? Like understanding that person's love language at the beginning, rather than to be in the dating stage for about 6 months and then jumping into a marriage and then start questioning communications after 3 years of marriage. And why am I still married? Why am I still holding on to this when this person's never going to change? But I think if we were able to communicate at the beginning, it might save us a lot of heartache and, you know what I mean, save us some tears as well. So thank you.
No worries, Malachi. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I'll pass it to you, Savage. What do you think? What are your thoughts about communication as far as Pacific Islanders in our relationships? What are your thoughts on that, Savage?
Communication is going to be different for everybody. Easily when we think communicate, we think talk. My uncle, whenever he pissed my auntie off, this dude is corny as fuck. He'd go and buy her flowers and chocolates. He still does that shit today. You get what I'm saying? And like for me, it's not a prideful thing. He would do that because he wouldn't know the words to say, I'm sorry. Right? Old Tongan men are very prideful. But that was his way of communicating to my auntie, I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And that's their way of communicating. And there's nothing wrong with paying attention. You can pay attention to what everyone is doing. The minute you become involved in what everyone is doing, that's the issue you deal with, because you start to assimilate into everybody else when you think everyone's assimilating into you, right? So communication looks different for everyone. But for me personally, like me and my wife, we know very well, we are not the majority. We are not the general public. We are not man and woman when they do these statistics. You are Lethe and I'm Henry or Savage, whatever, and we're doing us. I don't give a fuck what the statistics say. I know what I'm doing here with you right now. If I put in, day out, sun up to sundown, we put in hours in this shit. Blood, sweat, and tears. And when we hear all of our friends, damn, did you hear about so-and-so? They divorced, or did you hear about them? That shit discourages us. It hurts us because these are people we came into the game with. And now to hear that they're breaking down, their foundations are cracked, it's a sign to don't speak on it. Leave it alone. Let's move. Let's get out of here. Migrate. Get up out of Dodge, right? Don't get in the middle of traffic. You got to fucking move, right? And communication between me and my wife is very simple and easy, and that's really understanding things, very minute, right? Body language, recognition, speaking life into each other, engagement, creating together, challenging each other. Our health. Like health has been big lately for me and her. Singing with each other, dancing with each other, laughing with each other, praying with and for each other. Not because everybody else is telling us to do it, but because we're experiencing it on our own, right? Because the minute we begin to, we think, oh, we're pretty good at giving advice. Let's go share with other people. No, now our progress stops. I would rather I would rather everybody else be miserable and me and you be good for the rest of life. You know what I'm saying? It sounds selfish. If I have good advice to give you, if it means I would be risking the peace and mind of my relationship, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to suffer because not everybody gets to reach that happy ending. And I would be selfish and greedy like that just so my kids know it's obtainable. I would do that. So if communication is too much for you, oh man, you can't just open your mouth and say you were wrong. You can't just open your mouth and say, hey, I don't like anal, or hey, you can't just open your mouth and say you took last night's money to go spend on bingo. Listen, there are far more difficult things going on out here in the world for us to be out here saying that I can't communicate because that's just not me. It's not who I am. Listen, dog. They're talking about Pacific Islanders failing in marriage. And my ancestors, like ancestral period, didn't have a concept of marriage because everybody was fucking each other. So I'll be honest with you. Logically, that's what we want to do physically. But in controlled discipline and morality, this is the hardships and pains when you do get married, that's the challenge. Can you do it? Can you do that? Can you mind your eyes to your loved one? Can you control your urges when it comes to those points? Can you fight the temptations and progress through the hard times just to go through it? Because if not, this relationship might not work for us, so we might want to try somewhere else. And that's not to discourage someone. That's just to tell you that's how real it can get out here. Because when you thought people were your friends, all of a sudden they're no longer in your corner. You can't blame them. You cannot blame them. So with that being said, communication is key. You have to give that in order to get that. And if that's too difficult, all I can do is pray for you. That's it.
All right, no worries, Savage. Always appreciate thank you for sharing, Toko. Pass it to you, Palofesa. Palofesa, what's your thoughts on the communication? Among Bisabans. Go ahead, Toko.
Communication is difficult because the vast majority of us are just overgrown children. That's the pure, simple way of putting it. When you realize that communication is a big key to not just your relationship, but to the world in general, you start to move a little bit different. You start to look at the person you choose to be with for the rest of your life as someone that is a human being. They have their own ways of communicating, and understanding that takes a little bit of observation, figuring out how they communicate and whether that's helpful or beneficial to you. And not only that, communicating the way that you would love to be communicated to. So, for example, me and my wife, there are certain things that I would say to my wife, look, I may look like I'm in a whole heap of stress. I don't need to talk about it. I'm in my head because I need to figure this shit out. And it's nothing to you. It's just how I work. And if you've got some input later, yeah, fair enough. We can have a discussion about it. And then my wife has a certain way of communicating that I understand. There's a cohort of things that we like to use and to blame, but look, if we are going to sit here and say as adults, this is what we must do, look, we can't use excuses to the reason why we lack communication. Oftentimes we are children and we look towards our own best interest in wanting other people to understand us to the degree that we understand ourselves. That will never happen. That is unrealistic. To demand understanding from another human being to the degree that you think you understand yourself is just unrealistic. So develop a bit of patience and humility when you have another human being in your direct influence, and figure out, like Rose and many others in here have said, figure out the way that you communicate and the way that they do communication. Right? If it's not helpful and if you can't interpret it, then maybe have a word. Look, I can't understand you when you sit there and huff and puff and cross your arm. Do you need me to listen to you? Do you want me to sit there and just hear you vent, or do you want me to fuck off, essentially, right? What is it that you need from me so that I can be able to be a little bit more effective in my presence and whatnot? There are other things too. Look, we're stubborn as human beings, and this is not just privy to us as Pacific Islanders. We're stubborn, and also at the same time, our selfishness leads us to want not to hurt other people, especially the people that we love. And oftentimes, the things that we say in our head, we overcomplicate it by thinking, oh, if I say this, I might hurt them, rather than I need to say this because the relationship isn't going to move any more forward than it currently is if I don't communicate this. And we'll go back to what Malakai was saying. A lot of us men also fail at this pretty bad. We are so dumb in the sense of we don't interpret and observe the women that we're with. And this is why a lot of our arguments or debates on this panel usually derives from, is that we don't understand that oftentimes women love to spin a little story before they get to the main point, whereas us men, A to B, that's it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. We move on. So look, we can look at trauma, we can look at pain, we can look at the way that we were raised up. But I think if you claim to be an adult, there's a level of responsibility and self-awareness that comes with that. So if you truly value the relationship you're in, you will figure it out. Some smart person once said the definition of insanity is doing the same shit over and over again, expecting a different result. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working, I think you might have to try and look at other things, other tools to use. So look, before I end it off, look, we overcomplicate communication. Start off by just saying, look, I may be terrible at saying this and it might hurt you, but I'm trying to work on this. So if what I'm saying to you is hurting you, understand that I am doing this because there's something that deeply moves me in a way that I don't want to be moved. And I need to say this to you so that I may be able to move forward in this relationship with you. If that's not how you want to receive it, let me know. Let me be better at this, but I won't know that until you tell me how to communicate with you, vice versa. It is that simple. It just takes a little bit more guts and a little bit more balls to say it and go, if it hurts you, but I love you and I want to move forward. I can't do that if I can't tell you this.
Man, powerful, Palofesa. Man, thank you for sharing. Alopito, let me pass it to you, Ness. What are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts on the communication aspect?
Hey, bro, I had to go after Palofesa too. Sheesh. I agree with 100% with everybody saying. Most importantly, with what Malakai said earlier too, I think in the beginning talking stages, it's very important that communication is streamlined with one another. And I'm not saying that the men have to be emotionally available to the women. No, we just have to tell our girl, but like, hey, this is where I'm at in life. This is what it is. This is what I don't like. This is what I do like. And I promise you, on my end, I'm going to learn everything about you as long as you communicate to me what it is that you love and don't love. Right. So the moment then when we get into the 6 months of talking, and then you guys start to follow more, us as men, we start to acknowledge the women's love languages and stuff like that, and vice versa. Then it's a little bit more easier to take the next step of commitment, 100% commitment. And then as you get into a committed relationship, you get married. What's the chances of a failed marriage? Right, is if you took all the necessary steps of communication by, number one, setting the boundaries, number two, explaining what your expectations are. What is it that I want? What does Nessie want out of this relationship, and vice versa? What do you want? My significant other. What is it that you want? And by building off of that, we can now see, and just like what Professor said, as adults, we now can take responsibility and take accountability for, all right, if this messes up, it's because something happened. It's not because of the communication. It's because if the marriage fails, it's not going to be because of communication, because me and you were going to be solid. So I think I agree 100% with Malakai said and with everybody else said, but the talking stages in the beginning 100% have to be locked in order for all of this to be successful, I believe.
All right, man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for sharing that. Let me read some comments real quick, and I'll come back to the panel. Anything you guys want to add on, or maybe you guys want to challenge real quick. I see Sifa Wessi here for the first time in the live chat. Sifa, good to see you, man. Thank you for being on the live chat. Says shout out to Salote. Hey, good to see you. Sifa, I see a lot of family and friends here from Salote being on here tonight. Shout out to you guys. I see Naki T, man. Always good to see you. Naki said on the live chat said, watch the pattern. All right, watch the pattern. Observe. All right, that's facts. All right, and I think somebody else said on the live chat. I see Michael Collins here for the first time. I think that's maybe the first time. Maybe I've seen you before. I can't recognize her name. But Michael Collins said, "Talk to him, Savage." All right, shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. And John Payne on the live chat said, "I think that's why this generation don't really want that commitment, meaning no marriage." All right, no worries. Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody on the live chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I see a lot of you guys on here. Appreciate you guys watching the entire show. We still got some more time to finish this conversation. Let me pass it back to the panel. Ladies and men, we got a chance to hear from both perspectives from men and women. Anything you guys want to add on? Have an open discussion. Anybody who wants to go first? Go ahead, Savage.
I just wanted to speak on vulnerability, right? To the young men. I don't want to talk to nobody else but the young men. You know, I've been speaking more on experience the majority of the night, but to you young men, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with even being sad or in your feelings, right? I know the majority of us that come from a certain background, specifically here in America, it's a sign of weakness when we cry or show any kind of emotions because of our background or our environment. And if you're aware of what I'm talking about, I'm just basically talking about that certain background. So, you know, when you do find that significant other, man or woman, whatever your preference, it's okay to be vulnerable. Because when you go on a defensive 24/7 and you can't let down your guard for the one you love, it's a bigger struggle for them to break down a mess that wasn't theirs. All that trauma, all that shit that came into them. You know, this part I am talking from experience. I'm the greatest failure in history. I'm the biggest loser you could ever know in your life. And you know, I don't believe you could, you know, no matter how clean you can clean a pig, you know, most people would believe that pig to be dirty. But you know, I believe my wife, she can shine shit. Like try saying that 5 times fast. My wife could shine shit. I was shit before I ever got into her life. You know, I did cocaine from like the age of 18 till 21. You know, I was fucking girls from left to right with no condoms, and she still found value in me. You know, still found value in me. That's to me is unfathomable because by that time you would think my time is spent, my value is gone. But here's a woman who's very like she's deeply dug into what she believes. She comes from a strong background and found value in me because I was able to be vulnerable. She cleaned me when I was like piss shit drunk. Will knows. I told him in the first episode whenever I did an interview with him. And I laid that all bare because if you can't be vulnerable when it comes to the depths of communication, it's not something your significant other holds over you, right? Because they've seen you at your worst. Oh, well, do you really want me to tell you what people don't know about you? No, that's not what that is. Because if it ever becomes that, there was something wrong with the relationship. The point of why I'm telling you that it's okay to be vulnerable, because if you can't do it with them, who can you with, right? It's a hard to fight that battle every day, to like be hardcore macho and all that for like 24/7. It gets unbearing and it gets tiring. It's okay to be sad, to go through feelings and all that, but don't do it by yourself. It's a lot more bearable if you have someone that you love and can lay that weight on. So I just wanted to say that.
All right, no worries, Savage. Thank you for sharing. I know Palofesa wanted to respond to that. Go ahead, Palofesa.
God, I love this word, vulnerability. Look, if you want to draw a metric, look out into nature, look around you, anywhere at all. What happens to animals who are weak and vulnerable? They attack mercilessly, and they're often picked on. Now, let's put that to a human capacity. We are the most sentient being. So if animals are able to do this without being sentient, imagine what humankind can do to someone who is vulnerable. Look, I don't believe in this thing called vulnerability. I believe in admitting your fault when you have one and saying, look, this is a fault of mine, but I will do better and I will work on being better. This whole idea that we have to be vulnerable, to me, it's almost as if we're giving ourselves scapegoats for being incapable of doing better. That's how I see vulnerability. And for us as men, look, we have to admit that we are at fault. There are things that moves us in certain ways that we don't want to be moved in that direction. But to admit this whole vulnerability thing, to me, it sounds whack in the sense that there is no foundation. What else can you do with vulnerability? I can't even say the damn word. I believe in accountability. That's what I believe in. I believe in admitting that when you have shortcoming, I do have shortcoming. I'm only human, but that's never going to be an excuse for why I will remain in the same mindset as I am currently. Yes, it's all right to feel emotions, but at the same time, we're not built to operate out of emotions. If you look at the worst men in vast majority of society and the spectrum that they fall on, most of them are very emotional beings. So the reason why I leave emotional to the women is because they equalize it far better than we do. We're literally built to operate from a place where we consider a lot of the rational and logistics of things. It is not that we are incapable of being emotional. It is that we are optimized to being more logical. Women are more optimized to being emotional, and that is not a bad thing. This is why women equalize the environment that they're in. You give a woman a home, a house, an empty vessel. It's just a building. She can turn that shit into a home where no one else, when they walk into that building, they know exactly who the woman is in that house. That's mama or grandma or whoever, right? There's a certain feeling. And me as a man, doesn't matter how feminine I can be and how in touch I am with my emotion, I can never replicate that feeling. But there's also a certain feeling that family finds safety in a man, a good leader. Those feelings cannot be replicated by anyone else. This is the complementary nature that we have. Look, I understand where you're coming from, Savage. I truly understand. But this whole vulnerability things that we're telling men, look, it's okay to be weak. Most men start out being weak. But to claim vulnerability as a way to opt out of responsibilities that you have as a man, I think it's more of a scapegoat that most people use now. And unfortunately, the world is not as pretty as we want it to be. The world will hit you harder in most places than you never thought. Look, I never thought I'll have to face the reality that I might have to bury my wife in the next 10 years. That shit hits me, and I have to go through my day thinking about that most days. It's not that I'm incapable of feeling emotion. It's just, look, I've got to process it, but at the same time, I can't imagine what my wife is going through. Yes, I can be vulnerable, but what good will that do to my family, especially my wife and my children? Our daddy is broken down. Who else do we look for leadership and for safety? Our daddy's broken down because mummy's essentially going to be dead in the next 10 years, possibly, right? So there is strength that we need to draw on, and this is why it's very important for us men to stick together and to support each other in the ways that we look into the world. But vulnerability is not the way that we do it.
No worries. Malo Palofesa. Savage, you want to respond? Go ahead, Savage.
No, yeah, I definitely hear what Daniela's saying. And, the importance of that is not to be in it too long, right? That's, I guess, where he's coming from, where I'm coming from, are two different perspectives because he's generalizing men altogether. I'm talking about Pacific Islander men. And I'll be honest, this might be controversial, but, Polynesian, Melanesian, Micronesian, Tongan, Samoan, I don't care. Pacific Islander men have the least emotional intelligence in my experience, which is why a lot of times when these suicide rates go up is because of that machismo, right? You don't want to let that shit out. What happens? It explodes later. It's a ticking time bomb when we do want to, because, one of the first episodes I ever had with Daniela was he talked about this analogy or metaphor of a toolbox. Your emotions are a tool when and when not to use them, right? And I'll never forget that. And that's why in relationships, if we are failing in 2022 with Pacific Islander marriages, I can tell you from experience, whether you're Tongan, Samoan, whatever, Hawaiian, Cook Island, Niue, that we as Pacific Islander men lack emotional intelligence. And the only reason why that is we don't have experience in letting that out. Case in point, Ness said it already. Here in America, we're first generation. We didn't see our dad cry. But majority, we didn't see our dad cry. We didn't see that. And because we didn't see that, that's what we did. But then what happens when you're told you're depressed, right? Well, what happens when you're bipolar? What happens when you're schizophrenic? These terms and terminologies that begin to plague your mind, and you have no idea what they mean. You have to research, study it, and then you have to follow up a prescription and all these drugs. Next thing you know, you become a part of the statistic. This is what I was talking about earlier with me and my wife. The only way I could get better was I had to let that shit out. I had to drop the coke. I had to stop fucking these bitches. I had to stop being the way I was because it was all a scapegoat for me. I was lashing out because I was pushing in, right? But I wasn't aware of that because there was someone there who just allowed me, maybe it was like the middle of the night and I just woke up crying and I didn't know what to do with it no more. It fucking exploded. My wife sat there and comforted me. I'm not saying to stay in that state because that is true. If you become way too vulnerable, who the fuck is the man in the relationship then? I'm not trying to give gender roles. Miss me with all that bullshit. I'm talking to you Pacific Islander men. If it's too tough for you to lay bare to your significant other, it's going to hurt later when it explodes. Trust me when I tell you, that's experience talking. That's experience talking. I'm not telling you because of a statistic. I'm telling you from my own experience and family members I've lost to suicide because they waited too late and no one heard them or even knew. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, but don't stay in it too long, I guess is what I meant to say.
All right, no worries. Let me, Palofesa, did you want to respond real quick, and I'll come back to the ladies in the other panel. Go ahead, Palofesa, quick response. Go ahead.
Look, I hear the stories. I hear it all the time, and I sit down with people who have gone through this experience. It's not the vulnerability that's the problem. The problem is that people aren't communicating. That's the problem. The vulnerability is the end product of not communicating. It's not the vulnerability itself. If you yourself is saying, look, I'm heading down a path where it's stressful, I need to talk with my wife. Look, please avoid me in the next 2 hours. I need to sit down and think about this and try and handle this. If I can't figure it out, let's have a conversation. You might have a better idea. But when it gets to a point where you explode, that's a result of breakdown communication after breakdown, right? So it's not that we aren't vulnerable. We're not emotionally intelligent to a certain degree. We fail to communicate even at the most basic of shit. And this is why I'll forever be a proponent of dating before getting committed. Like Malakai and Ness were saying, and this is my stance on this world, is that date, get to understand what the communication level is and be able to articulate yourself where you fail, the failures. Getting to a point where your last resort is to be vulnerable, I'm sorry to say, but you have broken down your own communication level way further before you even got to that point. I will stand here today and say, as a masculine man, it has never got overbearing to be masculine. I will say that to you now because I'm optimized for it. I'm built for it. And to say that, we explode and we commit suicide because we're not vulnerable, I don't see it. I don't see it in the sense that a lot of people talk about it in that way because they only see the end product. No, communicate. And like I said before, if you're shit at it, admit that you're shit at it. And allow the other person that you commit to be able to tell you, okay, maybe don't talk to me like that, but maybe use these. Okay, cool, I'll use this. Okay, then communicate to me like this. I don't want a story, just hit me hard. Look, you're failing. Cool, I can take that. I can work with that. Don't give me a story. That's not how I communicate. But for you, I need to spin a story and make it sound good, make it sound sexy, make it sound appealing. Great, let's start with that, right? The number one confusion that most people have with suicide, especially with men, is that men aren't vulnerable enough. No, it's that men are scared to communicate in the first place because we're not telling them, look, be a man, stand up strong, be a pillar of your family and your community. That there is nothing wrong to all these values. But if you feel weak, come and have a chat with me and I might be able to add some more tools to you. Have a chat with your wife. It's communicating, not vulnerability. I'll leave it at that.
No worries. I'm all over the Palofesa. Let me pass to the ladies real quick, and then I'll come back to the fellas. We about the vulnerability. I want to hit it for the ladies. A lot of men. There's a lot of women now. We're talking about marriage and relationships, and we live in Western society. There's a lot of women out there saying, even Polynesian women, they're saying that they want their men to be vulnerable. I want to ask you guys personally: do you want your man to be vulnerable? or do you prefer a man to be strong? I've heard from both sides. A lot of women would say they want the man to be vulnerable. But I've also heard from a lot of women as well.
Can I answer that?
They kind of lose respect for a man if he becomes vulnerable, too vulnerable, and then they don't see him as the same leader no more. So a lot of women kind of lose their relationship starts to degrade if a man is vulnerable and doesn't offer any solutions. So Underground Rose, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
There is
Go ahead,
nothing
Underground
wrong
Rose.
with
Go ahead.
vulnerability. It actually, sorry. Vulnerability is courage. It's actually stepping into the unknown to be able to be exposed. It takes courage to do that. It's not a weakness, but if you're in a relationship, let's talk about relationship rather than masculine or feminine who's a survivor, you have to have the courage to be able to sit there and be exposed for any uncertainty that's going to come your way, to be able to articulate that. A lot of women are tired of being tired, and we just want to be able to just sit there and just let go and and just trust someone to be able to let go. Does that make sense? And it takes courage to do that. And I think when we say it's kind of weak to be vulnerable, I mean, we're clinging onto a mask. Are we gonna resolve or communicate effectively if we're not? Sorry, that's just my thoughts on vulnerability. I mean, you can control that. There's a matter of self-control, but if two people are holding on to a mask, you're not going to get anywhere.
Okay. All right. No worries. Underground Rose. I'm going to pass it to Salote. Salote, what do you think about the vulnerability discussion? Do you think, what are your thoughts about that for yourself? You know, that is something that I do hear from a lot of within our personality community, that the men are not vulnerable enough. You know, they're just too stoic. They're too stoic. They don't communicate. They don't talk about their feelings. But what's your thoughts about that, Salote?
I actually agree with Palofesa and Savage. I see both of it, their point of view. And I guess I can just speak on my marriage because I don't know anybody else's. But as far as like vulnerability and in a marriage, I feel that like a man can be vulnerable with a woman, like in their own way. Like for me and my husband, it would be behind closed doors where that vulnerability is, you know, where there's just an intimate and only us moment. That's just a special moment between us only, where he can share that with me. But at the same time, seeing that he has to have that backbone and has to have that what is it, stern man strength to really like carry out with what Palofesa is saying. And so I think vulnerability doesn't make a man weak at all. But at the same time, I can see how it could be taken to an extreme of where women want this, which is funny because women want like this soft, tender, kind-hearted man, but at the same time want a man to be strong, protect, provide, you know. And it's like, where does that boundary draw for a man, you know? And so I don't know. I kind of feel like it's just up to that couple, to that marriage, you know, themselves, because it's different. Like for us, vulnerability is behind closed doors for my husband, because when it's time for him to go out and be a man, he needs to go out and be a man, you know, do what he needs to do to provide, protect, and do everything that he needs to do. So anyways, like that's how I feel about it.
Okay. All right, no, Salote, thank you for sharing. Hungry Someone, what are your thoughts on it?
I think there's with us women, we tend to look at vulnerability as sensitivity. So vulnerability is more of a weakness, sensitivity is being more empathic. And I think that's what we want as women. We want more of that sensitive side, not so much the vulnerable side. So I'll give you an example. Like when Polynesian men drink, they tend to be obviously more uninhibited and therefore more vulnerable. So a lot of violence seems to break out. A lot of Polynesian men that drink too much get in fights and then get locked up. And so that's being vulnerable, and also that's having less emotional intelligence. So basically, Palofesa and Savage, you're both right. I think we just need to kind of find a solution to this. What's the solution? Well, when we have a discussion on a podcast with the masculine mind, when we're talking about vulnerability, basically what it comes down to is if you could trust that your woman is not going to use it against you, then it's okay. But that's not something you want to put out in the beginning. So you want to show your masculinity. And then once you've built that trust, then behind closed doors, like Salote was saying, you can be vulnerable knowing that, you know, you've already built that trust and showed your masculinity up front. So vulnerability, as we discussed, needs to be earned. And if we take that word out, vulnerability, and use sensitivity, I think that's a better word, because that's really just what we want. We want men to empathize with us, to show us that, hey, like, I understand what you're going through. I care. So, yeah.
All right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that. Hungry Someone, Rose. Let me pass it to Tui, and I'll come back to you, Malachi and Ness, to add on to your thoughts. Tui, what are your thoughts about vulnerability? Like the previous podcast, today, just stop being a bitch and man the fuck up. What are your thoughts, Tui? Go ahead.
Vulnerability is cool. I guess it depends in like what context we're gonna use it. I'll just leave that there. I'd rather have a man that's resilient and self-sufficient. So like you can be vulnerable, be sensitive, all that good stuff. That's fine. But like, I guess, in what sense are we being vulnerable? Like, I'm so sorry. Can somebody like, are we just like guessing the kind of vulnerability that we're all like? Somebody like give me a guideline, because I'm not.
I think the context. I think for the context is just for men when he's just going through a lot, and he just wants to talk about his problems. Like he wants to talk about his problems because he feels like he can't handle his problems, or maybe just feel like his life is overwhelming. I mean, everybody's different, but I think for the context is, okay, I don't feel like I have any control over what's going on with my life. Let me express my issues to my woman, instead of what me and Palofesa are saying is like communicate it, but we gotta figure out solutions to solve it. But just like talking about your issues that you're going through as a man, if life just gets hard for you, and expressing that to your woman.
Okay. So, oh my God. I'm gonna say, I'm sorry, gentlemen. Don't express it to your significant other. If you are down and out, and you don't know what to do, and you're ugly crying, do it to your boys. Do not do that to your significant other, unless she is like me. That's fine, because if you have a strong woman that can pick your ass up and push you and will carry you across the fucking finish line until you're ready to fucking walk again, don't do it. Women say they want that, but they're not ready for it. I'm sorry to everyone that is gonna like spit on this clip. Fuck you. I'm right. That's it.
All right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that, Tui. Let me pass it to the fellas. Malachi, man. What are your thoughts about vulnerability? Should men be vulnerable to tell women about their issues, their problems, and their their failures, or the issue to take responsibility to solve it? We're hearing from different perspectives. What's your perspective? Go ahead, Malachi.
Well, from a perspective from someone that just came out of prison, vulnerability was not in my vocabulary, right? Because in that setting, it was super hard to actually, like, I communicated, you know what I mean? But to walk around moping and crying all day, I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I just couldn't do it. But I'll express to my wife over the phone, be like, man, I'm going through it some days. You know what I mean? I'm going through it today, but I'm still okay though. You know what I mean? So vulnerability, I'm not too sure, man. It's something that I'm not too familiar with, so I can't really speak too much about it. Just because, you know what I mean? Like having done 30 months in there, it's just, and then coming home, I still, like, maybe it's just me. It's just my normal now, like I'm not able to I don't know, to be vulnerable. I do cry, I guess. You know what I mean? I do cry, but that's just feelings that I'm okay with. You know what I mean? I'm okay with sharing my feelings. If I went to um someone that I haven't seen in a long time or someone that passed away, yes, I do cry. Does that make me look weak? I don't think so. That's just my feelings. You know what I mean? Like that's just the feeling, but is that called vulnerability? Um, but like I said, I can't really speak too much about vulnerability because, like Palofesa said, man, for us in prison, it's not try who's the toughest guy there, but it allows space for people to to get picked on. You know what I mean? And I've seen it. I've seen it. You know, I've seen men get tore down in there. Then all of a sudden, they're moving the section because they were preyed upon. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm just saying, like, I can't really speak about it, man. Both of what they had to say was amazing. You know what I mean? For me to learn and for me to dissect and for me to think about and ponder on my time. So I really do appreciate the different opinions and you know what I mean. So yeah, that's all I got to say.
All right, no worries, Malachi. Thank you for sharing. But let me pass it to you, Ness, and I'll definitely come back to the panel if you want to open up for open discussion before we conclude the podcast. I see you guys in the live chat, man. I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you guys think. We're having an interesting conversation right now. We're kind of split. We're kind of split right now. Some people on the panel think we should be vulnerable. Some of us don't believe we're vulnerable. So I definitely would love to hear your feedback and your experiences as Pacific Islanders, or if you're not Pacific Islander, what are your experiences when it comes to being vulnerable? Here for both of the men and women. Pass it to you, Ness. Ness, what are your thoughts about vulnerability?
Yeah, man, I think there were great points that were made. For me, I think when it comes to men being vulnerable to women, I think the only woman that you can be vulnerable to is your mother as men, because our moms are the ones that birthed us. They carried us for 8, 9 months. So so when I say that, I'm saying it in the context of vulnerability means to be susceptible to being physically attacked or emotionally attacked, right? So us as men, we've always been trained and either we've always learned to be that tough person. Now, when I hear Palofesa say that vulnerability, it's not a thing, I agree. For men, it shouldn't be a thing because if we're communicating it right to our significant other, the issues or the things that the small things that are coming up in our daily lives as men, we can nip it in the bud. But like Palofesa said too, when we continue as men to let these things build up on top of each other, who am I to tell my wife or my girlfriend, and it was like, man, this dude at work over here is trying me, or this, like just blatantly just spilling out everything. I mean, that to me shows weakness. And Tuli, I agree with everything that you had said also. What I do agree with when Savage was talking about vulnerability to the younger generation to open up, I don't think that's vulnerability. I think that's just a different form of communicating. I think it's more of an intimate, being more intimate communication of being more intimate with our significant others, right? Who is it? Rose, you said it yourself, right? It's not being vulnerable. The women just want a different side of us, the softer side, and I believe that's the intimate side, right? The intimate communication and just regular communication with our significant others daily that are constantly happening to avoid major issues outside that can possibly come in and ruin whatever you and your significant other have, whether if it's a relationship, whether if it's marriage or anything like that. So I don't know if that makes sense, guys, but that's kind of what my thoughts were.
All right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that, Ness. Let me just read some comments real quick and I'll come to you guys. If you guys have any questions you want to ask or you want to reply to what somebody said, this is an interesting conversation. Good. This is a real thing that happens not only in outside the Pacific Islander, but within our own community. I see you, Insane Craze, here for the first time. He said, what the fuck? All right, no worries. Shout out to you, Insane Craze. He came in and right. We had a very interesting, hot conversation tonight. See you, Sandy. Sandy, always good to see you in the live chat. I always appreciate your our conversation we have on the Discord. Vulnerability involves weakness. There are ways to communicate without being vulnerable. That's why I say communication through respect, compassion, empathy makes a difference. All right, no worries. I see you, Polynesian Style, man. Good to see you, Polynesian Style, back on the podcast on the live chat. He said, at Nessie, if you know, Facts. All right, no worries. Thank you so much, man. The brother's coming on as a public guest and spitting some facts tonight. And I see Neil West on the live chat. Neil West said, I can't multitask typing out what's in my head and listen to the podcast at the same time. Goddamn. All right, goddamn. All right, no, Neil West. If you can't multitask and type, just click on that link and just.
That's vulnerability right there. You're vulnerable to that.
All right. And I see Mr. Certified 91. What is the true definition of vulnerability? Everybody here has a different intake or definition. No worries. All right, thank you guys. Let's get that live chat popping. Let's go hard. Everyone on the live chat. Let's go hard right now. We're going to come to the conclusion of the podcast. I want you guys to go hard right now. Let me know what you guys think. And of course, don't forget, we do. It's a public platform. You want to jump on real quick and to jump and be part of the conversation. I do invite you guys to come on. But yeah, let me pass it back to you guys. I know Palofesa, you wanted to ask a question, and we can just open it for open discussion. Go ahead, Palofesa.
Yeah, look, it looks like we have all different definition of what vulnerability is. So I'm not even going to go there. What I do want to know is what benefit does one get by being vulnerable that you do not get by being not vulnerable? What is the benefit? And is that that benefit can only be achieved by being vulnerable? I want to know.
All right, cool. All right. What's the benefit of being vulnerable that you won't get if you weren't vulnerable? Go ahead, Savage. You want to respond? Go ahead.
No, I heard everybody's dialogue. I think the misunderstanding or misconception was my usage of the word vulnerability, which by any means, if I was irresponsible in doing that, please forgive me. I meant no harm. Vulnerability, it has a negative connotation because it means to be susceptible to or finding a weakness. That's not what I meant. So please forgive me in the usage of the word vulnerability. Now, if it's a proper word you'd like, expose. Right? Exposure, right? That it's okay to be exposed to your significant other, to young Pacific Islander men. That's what I truly meant to say as far as context. If it's truly meant to be defined, I didn't mean for you to give your weaknesses out because your enemies seek your weakness. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean vulnerable in that context. I meant to be exposed. That doesn't make you weak. That doesn't make you weak to be exposed. So if it's to correct that, please allow me to correct that. I meant to tell the young Pacific Islander men in these relationships, these young marriages, it is okay to be exposed to your significant other. That's what I meant. Please forgive me for my misspeaking. As far as answering the question, there is no benefits to being vulnerable. Please, because Superman's invulnerable. Superman has invulnerability. To be the opposite of that would not make him Superman. So no, there is no benefits to being vulnerable. Please, young men, do not misunderstand me. Don't be vulnerable.
Hey, that is true. When Superman decided to be human and be vulnerable, he almost got fucked up. All right, so he had to become superhuman again. All right. So that's a great example. All right. Pass it back to the panel. What do you guys think? The Palofesa has a great question, ladies. What do you guys agree or disagree? But there is a movement. There are a lot of women out there, especially in Western society, and I've heard it from Pacific Islander women. To see the traditional men that weren't, were very masculine, but now they want a more sensitive man. But they ask their men to be vulnerable. What is the benefit of opening yourself up and being vulnerable, talking about issues openly to your woman? Let me pass it back to the panel. Anybody want to answer that question?
Can I say something? I'm talking about vulnerability in regards to the relationship, the communication, but you guys are talking in reference to survival, correct?
What's the difference?
There's a difference.
Seriously, what is the difference?
Yeah. So we are addressing how being vulnerable as far as in a relationship, communicating, right? That's okay. Is that okay, or is that not okay in Polynesian culture for men to be vulnerable with their partner?
Why not be intimate? Why not be intimate?
Well,
with
that's
the woman
the same
that you
thing,
love?
right? Intimate is
not.
being
It
vulnerable,
isn't.
having the courage
That's
to
not
be
the same
exposed
thing.
and open.
That's not the same thing. Sorry.
How do you define vulnerability? What do you define it as?
It's being susceptible or weak to.
It's not
so vulnerability is
it's
a state,
open, right?
It's the state of being easily exposed to harm. Like that's the actual definition.
Right, but when we talk in terms of relationships and couples, is there something wrong with being vulnerable like that in your intimate moment? That's
I can answer that. If it has no benefit, then why are we deploying that?
Is what we're.
I can be. Yeah. So, sorry, Toy, for cutting you off. There's a new wave within the youth that use vulnerability as it's been intended for eons of humankind, not just humankind, creatures, all living things. When you are vulnerable, it doesn't matter what species you are from, you will be picked on. It is more prevalent in prison because this is the most extreme of our society. The difference between vulnerability and intimacy is that intimacy takes you deeper. It takes you down a path that is way deeper than this whole idea of, oh, I'm going to be weak, therefore I'm going to be complete with you as a human being. Why not just be intimate? Find out what the other person wants to explore, whether that be sexually, whether that be through deep intellectual thinking, whatever that may be. That is intimacy in the sense that I love you to the point that I'm willing to go down to the depths of your soul. That is not vulnerability, that is exploration and being intimate.
So define what is intimacy. Define what is
exploring the deepness of your soul, whatever that manifest may be. Why do we have to be vulnerable? It has no benefit, so why do we deploy it? For us,
bearing your soul is still vulnerable, right? Bearing your soul is still vulnerable. That's an intimacy. That's still bearing your soul to someone. You're trusting someone to be able to expose yourself to them, to be able to communicate some of your sensitive points. And when I'm talking from a psychological term, when you talk about relationships and communication, that's not a survival thing. If you want if your relationship want to survive, right, you have to be vulnerable in your relationship, right? And that comes with
because you're scared. This is the idea of intimacy to me. If I'm intimate with my wife and she says to me, I'm going to leave you tomorrow because you no longer fulfill my cup, that is not me going to look at myself and go, oh, I open myself up to you. How dare you? No, I made a wrong decision. I move on. I have no qualm in the sense of how the depth of my intimacy is going to be. When we use this idea of vulnerability, of opening up, it's from a place of being scared. We are scared to explore the depth of our beings. Look, I will open the doors to my wife, and I have so in exploration. But if my wife decides to leave me, that is no qualm to me. I'm more than willing to open the same door next week if I have to. It sounds sort of blasé and whatnot, but look, if you're scared that the only reason that you will put out this idea of exploration is through vulnerability, then you pick the wrong person. Really, you picked the wrong person. I call it intimacy because I made a decision and I stick by that decision. And I'm able to fully explore the depth of my own being, and so is my wife. This whole thing about vulnerability, oh, I only do this because I need to be vulnerable. Then you are scared. You haven't made the right decision. You don't trust yourself.
Okay, so you just said the word scared. So scared, right? If you're scared, right, what are you scared of? You're leaving yourself open for exposure, to be exposed?
But I'm not scared. I'm excited to explore those depths.
So if you're scared, it takes courage to be able to be vulnerable, to be open in a relationship.
But I'm not scared, Rode. I'm not scared, and yet I'm open to my wife exploring the depth of me, and so is she. That's the difference.
Can I add on, please? I'm so sorry.
You just said scared. Sorry, go ahead, Savage.
No. I love the dialogue. I just wanted to clarify this. My wife can't love me because I'm vulnerable. She can leave me if I am, though. She calls me a bitch because I am vulnerable. That's because I might be being a bitch. You know what I'm saying? She won't give me a compliment because I am vulnerable. It's just within context of itself. If you're going to utilize vulnerable to fit what you want as far as your narrative, it's always going to come off as misconstrued. I just did that earlier. I didn't mean to use vulnerability in the context of a relationship because it's going to show your weakness. If my wife sees me weak, she might want to contemplate being with someone who isn't weak. Does that make sense?
Okay. All right. Anybody?
Sorry, just to clarify
go
for
ahead.
Rode, just quickly clarify. Look, Rode, I'm not saying I'm scared in the sense it's a comparison. People use vulnerability because they're scared. They're scared of the decision that they made to be with this person. I have no benefit at all, and I don't see the benefit of vulnerability. Intimacy to me, however, is a confirmation of a decision I made with this woman. For example, I will use my wife. I'm excited to explore these new things with her. And to be open to that degree is exciting, not scary. Why? Because I made a conscious decision to choose her. I'm very comfortable with that decision. However, vulnerability is used when I see people who are scared of a decision that they've made and that they're not sure on the person that they've choose to be with.
Okay. All right. No, thank you, Palofesa, and I'm going for the discourse. The panel. Any guys want to add on your input to that? Tui, I know you wanted to say something. You want to go ahead, Tui?
Vulnerable or sensitive?
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. No worries. Let me pass it to you.
I will.
Ness, anything you want to? All right. What's up, Liti? Go ahead, Ness.
I think to be vulnerable, man, to be vulnerable to our significant other is 100% to show weakness, because where we are divulging information that is hurting us or can hurt us, right? Or that. So, prime example, if I'm talking to my girlfriend and she's doing something that I don't like, I am going to be vulnerable and say, "Oh man, my other relationships, my past relationships used to go like this, and this is what it was." Right? That to me, that's how I perceive, or that's how I look at being vulnerable in relationships. Is when you're constantly telling your significant other things that you don't like, but you see it in your significant other that they're doing, instead of just blatantly having a conversation about what it is that you do or you don't like. And all of that stems from what Malachi had said earlier, all the way back in the beginning of the relationship. You have to vet and you have to make sure you communicate the do's and don'ts, what you like, what you don't like, what turns you on, what turns you off. So by the time when you get into these long distance, or when you get into committed relationships or marriages, there's no such thing as vulnerability. The only time that the marriages will have some sort of vulnerability is if there's outside noise coming into your marriage, and that's when the vulnerability starts. At least to me, that's kind of what I'm looking at it. So,
okay, no worries, Ness. Thank you for sharing. Salote, Rose, Malachi, did you guys want to add on? I have a question for the ladies too, but I want to ask you guys. Anything you want to add on? Salote, Rose, or Malachi?
For the dudes out there, don't become vulnerable when your girl wants to leave you, right? I hear a lot of people start going back and start saying I'm sorry to their women when they didn't listen or whatnot, and then all of a sudden they get back into a relationship and the women use it on them. I guess that's what vulnerability is, a little bit, right? I'm just playing. Nah, I was just wanted to fuck the out with you guys a little bit. Mm-hmm.
That's just being a bitch.
You know where I see most of this vulnerability manifest itself amongst other men is when on a Friday afternoon, all the men that I see around me check their phone with their wives, call them at 5 o'clock and turning it on silent and having to pick up their phone and say, having to make a lie, essentially. Work's gone over time, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of men are surprised when I pick up the phone at 6 o'clock and say to my wife, I'm going to go find cover. I need a little bit of thinking space. And she goes, yep, have fun, be home in time. I said, don't wait up. Or even during the week, and I say to her, look, I need to go and see some of my mates. Or I need to go see some of the boys. Whenever that may be. It's not as often, but when I need to, I need to. In relationship, you get stuck in a crab sort of bucket that all you know is the four walls around you. Men and women need to have their own space in terms of being around other women and other men. But this whole vulnerability, I see it because men check their phone periodically at 5 o'clock on the dot and turn it on silent or either try and make up some lie. I still have the benefit of what you're defining as vulnerability without doing it. This is what I'm trying to communicate with you guys. As a man, I still have the depth of the exploration that me and my wife go through without this whole idea of vulnerability. I'm not scared. I'm excited. I'm excited because I made a decision. I know this is the woman I want to explore with, whatever the depth may be, however that looks like. It sounds like that vulnerability is the only way to be fully open with you, with your significant other. I am telling you, it is not. And my wife can stand and attest to that. And if it's possible, then why do we say that vulnerability is the only reason to be open?
Okay. All right, no worries. Thank you for sharing that, Palofesa. I just have one question for the ladies, and we'll conclude the podcast with this. And I'm gonna challenge the ladies right now to be honest. I want your pure honesty. We keep it real and freezing it raw on the podcast, right? Like I said, I agree with Palofesa. I don't think a man should be vulnerable to their women because I believe women, they're not gonna fix your problems for you. You have to fix your own problems. Women want strong men, especially you can have children. They want responsible men that they can trust to handle his obligations to their family. And I think, but at the same time, I do hear a lot of women, like Underground said, you want men to be vulnerable, talk about their fears, their traumas, whatever. But at the same sense, I do know men that have did that to women, and I've heard women say that this man looks like a bitch, weak as fuck. So I want to ask you, ladies, real quick, what is it? How do you know when a man is just becomes too much of a bitch because being vulnerable? Because what did the women say? Be vulnerable, talk about your weaknesses, open it up to the world, expose yourself to the world. But the problem is we can't control how women are going to respond, and depending on the woman. And the thing is, if you do that, if you're lucky, you find a woman like Tui and strong like Tui, that woman can carry you and take care of you. But the reality is, how do you know that as a man for sure? You don't really know. So why open that door and put yourself in that situation and open to that risk? It's better off for yourself just to figure out your own problem and improve as a man. But that's what I said, ladies. Like, how do you know, like, oh, this guy is too weak. Like, he's starting to be a little bitch right now. Like, how do you know that? Like, how do you distinguish that? How do you interpret that? Because that is a reality for a lot of men. And if a man, if he becomes vulnerable and a woman tells him you're a bitch, that can cause a lot of men, especially if they haven't built the values to handle that type of rejection, handle that type of emotional abuse. Oh, not abuse, but just for women to tell them the reality straight to their face. A lot of men can't handle that. So it's better off to figure it out for yourself. So I just want to ask you, ladies, like, when in your eyes, when you see a man, because there's a lot of men right now on social media. I don't know if you guys on social media. There's a lot of young men right now on social media crying on the camera, crying about their problems. And a lot of people on the comments would say, oh, thank you for opening up. But at the same time, none of those women on that comment section are going to date that man or are going to marry that man, let's be honest. So you want your men to cry? Okay. A lot of men are crying. But at the same time, I know ladies, like, if a man, there's a certain amount of crying, and eventually in your head are like, okay, he's crying like a bitch right now. I need the man to fuck up. So how do you, for all the men out there that's watching right now, I would love to hear from you ladies. How do you distinguish that when the man, for you, it just gets too overwhelming to the point where you just feel like that he's no longer being a man no more, and he's turning into a female and being a bitch right now? Let me start with you, Tui. How do you distinguish that from a man? If you ask a man to be vulnerable, great, but then at the same time, like, how do you know, hey, you're becoming too much of a bitch right now, becoming too weak right now?
I've never asked anyone to be vulnerable with me or for me, but I don't have a problem with a man crying. I never have. It happens. It's fine. But if you are crying about something, you're crying about past traumas, your problems that you have now, but you only cry about it without some kind of resolution. Like, if you're not trying to find ways to resolve it, yes, I'm going to have a problem with that. Like I said, I'd rather have a partner that's resilient and self-sufficient. So, like, crying is okay. Sob like a little bitch in front of me. That's fine. I'll give you a hug. We can go drink it off and eat at the fucking next buffet we see until you feel better, and then we can figure out how the fuck we're going to get out of this shit. But, like, if you just want to cry, that goes for anybody, though. If you just cry to me with nothing, like, nothing in your purview of what you're going to do, then you can take my foot and place it firmly up your ass and get the fuck out of my way, because like I don't have any time for that.
All right. All right. Thank you, Tui. All right. Let me pass it to you, Salote. Salote, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? When do you like when do you distinguish when a man is just being too vulnerable and he's starting to being a bitch right now? How do you get to that? How do you distinguish that?
I think I agree with Tui when he it's just all crying, no solutions. When he just basically comes, when he kind of puts the whole burden and the load on you without having any thought of trying to, or any thought of getting back on his feet and taking responsibility and moving forward. You know, like I've seen that multiple times where a man would just be like, okay, oh, you got me, cool, and kind of just start coasting, you know, and that's when I feel like, okay, all right, you're a little bitch now. Okay, I'd rather be with somebody else who's going to see me carry the load and carry it with me. Like I have no problem being with a man who's going to be down for a moment, but it's just for a moment. Okay. And then, you know, like you ain't supposed to be there forever. You're just supposed to be there for a moment. Then you get yourself back up and we're going to build an empire together. You know, I feel that like we all, like when I fall short, you know, I pray that my husband's there at the time that I fall short to show me and, you know, be a great light for me. At the same time with the man, you know, I have to be there as well. That's what being in a marriage is, being two people who are going to work on it together and just move forward together. But as far as like staying there, like what Tui said, you can't just stay there. You know, I want to see a man, I want to see my husband progress, move forward, continue to grow, you know, and I feel that that's important. You know, I feel that you become very I don't feel that you're a man and kind of staying back in that vulnerability, kind of like Palofesa said, like, I feel that vulnerability and intimacy are definitely different, you know? And so when you're putting yourself in that vulnerability just to stay at like a hurt puppy, you know, and not want to heal, mend, and grow, then that's your key, just to keep moving forward, grow, or let go, you know? But yeah, kudos to what Tui said.
Okay. All right, Rose. Let him know. Let him know, Rose. When do you distinguish when a man is just being too fucking weak right now and being a bitch? Like, how do you distinguish that?
I honestly haven't been with a man that hasn't shown his vulnerabilities and hasn't cried and hasn't showed his weakest points, but it was always temporary. I mean, we all go through, we're humans. As long as you're not stuck there, then, you know, we just need to show more compassion. I'm a very compassionate person, so very sensitive, empathic. I never look down or look at a man as, oh, you know, he's weak. I just try to find solutions, and, you know, everyone has every man, we don't know where they come from and how hard it is in the world. So I just feel like if a man can trust his woman to be vulnerable behind closed doors and know that she'll be understanding, then, and not be there, not be stuck there, then it can be worked on and it's fine. It's better for a man to be vulnerable behind closed doors with his wife than out in the open with other men, because other men can use it against them in the dog-eat-dog world, as opposed to showing that towards his wife, where she will only support and love and not see him as weak, but see him as, oh, you know, like he's opening up to me. As long as it's just temporary, it's fine. Just don't be stuck there. That's all.
Okay. All right. No worries, Rose. Thank you so much. But let me pass it to Irene, and we'll conclude the podcast with that. You know, obviously, Irene, you believe in vulnerability. You want the man to be open and be weak and share everything, fears, traumas, everything. So you don't think you got to get to a point, Irene, in your mind that you be like, man, this is too much, man. He's sound like a bitch right now. You don't ever get to that point. But maybe you think differently. What are your thoughts on the ground?
I think differently. So there's a difference between emotional intelligence. So you can figure out a man who's emotionally intelligent versus not, a man that's healed, right? At the same time, I would rather I agree with Palofesa, what he said, because they have a marriage, they have this trust, they have a bond, right? He doesn't need to be scared. I understand that. But in a sense, women need to stop lying to themselves. You know, you want men to articulate and express themselves. Yet you use their freaking, they come to you, be vulnerable, they tell you the truth, their feelings, and then you use it as a weapon, right? So it's one thing. Either you're gonna be okay with accepting that there's a point that you're gonna trust each other to be able for him to open up rather than him go look for side chick and be vulnerable. Because you can only be strong for so long. So you if you're in an intimate relationship, you trust this person, he wants to come home to a safe soundboard. Not a crazy soundboard, but a safe soundboard. 1 minute we want the men to tell us how they're feeling and stuff like that, and they're not communicating. Oh, we need to get this language done, this love language is done. That's a whole lot of bullshit. You have to be able to learn how to have the courage to allow your man and trust him to come and say, hey, let him and you do the same thing, be vulnerable and share. And if you're in that trusting relationship, then great, right? But the part where men don't want to date women is because when the women start weaponizing their vulnerability against them. And that's, it's just a given. I would rather, at my age, at 52, there's a difference between knowing whether a man is a bitch and emotionally weak. And there's a difference where there's a strong man where he can be vulnerable with you to be able to feel safe that you got his back. And I want, for me, I would rather a man come to me if I'm in a relationship and okay, I'm at that level, I'm mature, that, hey, you know what? Cool. I got your back. You got my back. There's this intimacy where I don't need to communicate anything. It's a knowing. So we need to stop lying to ourselves, women, seriously. It's what do you want? You want your man to be masculine, but at the same time, you want your man to be not, not be vulnerable. But then how are you wanting him to be safe, to be vulnerable, to communicate with you? I mean, it's just, you can't have it both ways. That's just my thoughts.
Underground Rose, my only response to that, and we will conclude. Anybody want to add on? That's women. You guys are emotional. You do these type of things. That's why for men, don't put yourself in that position. You guys are emotional. You guys get delusional. You guys say shit that you don't think about when in a heated moment. That's why as men, we have to be pragmatic, we have to be logic. And that's why a logical man, emotional woman, that we complement each other. But if a man is emotional, vulnerable, a woman is emotional, and you guys bring them together, that's just a toxic relationship, and it doesn't work.
But
so
not
that's why
all
for me
women
is
are
if a woman.
Not all women are emotional. I grew up with brothers, and I learned to fuck my emotions. I recognize what my emotions are. I know what it is. But when it comes to being rational, I got to put that on the table. So it doesn't mean that you're going to put all women in a basket saying that we're emotional. I don't think that way. I had someone tell me, hey, you're not even crying just because another woman's crying. No, because I'm trying to understand that woman, what she's feeling, what she's going through, and I'm trying to see past the tears. So you can't put us all in that whole category. Not all of us are girls that are still.
I'm not saying all. I'm
emotional.
Tune in next week's episode of Will Nkuzi's Cover Club podcast.
No, I'm saying majority Underground Rose. I'm saying majority. And if I'm talking to men right now, there's a man right now watching this right now. When you go out to the road, can you, like you said, you have to do, how do you know that a woman is not going to use your vulnerability against you? You don't. So you're going to leave it up to chance?
You know when you have a great self-knowledge about yourself and when you healed. You won't know that. Seriously, there's a difference between truly being healed and knowing a lot, self-awareness. Really know yourself. You can tell. You can really tell.
Okay. All right. No worries. Nevertheless, hey, we can agree to disagree. Appreciate it. But thank you for the open conversation. And you guys have a lot of chat going off right now. And thank you. Let me read some comments real quick, and I'll come back to you guys, and we'll conclude the podcast. Your final thoughts. All right. Haya on the live chat said He said, poly women for sure emotional. All right. All right, no worries. Polynesian style on the live chat said, poly women will fuck your life up. All right, no worries. No worries. Don't worry, John. But let me read John Payne. Thank you so much on the live chat. John Payne said, bro, the fact is, the reality is that we're telling the truth for the women on this generation. All right, no worries. Thank you so much. And Naki in the live chat shared, leaving us high and dry here. All right, no worries. And underground role, just my final thoughts. You know, I know you said most women are not emotional. Have you ever dealt with a woman that's on her menstrual cycle? Yeah, that's pretty emotional right there. So,
I'm not
you know,
saying
anyways,
most. I think some women,
yeah.
not like, you can't just generalize that all of us are emotional. Some of us at different level of emotional maturity. Some of us have, you know, been able to heal, to be able to recognize that the difference.
Okay, no worries. All right, thank you so much. But yeah, we have come to the end. Shout out to the panel one more time. All right. Okay, my air horn is not working. My air horn is my sound effects emotional right now. It's not working. Anyways, thank you so much, everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much on the live chat. Thank you for your feedback, whether you agree or disagree. But let me pass it to the panel. We had a great conversation. Talk about Pacific Islander marriages. We talked about vulnerability. We talked about communication and the failures that we lack. But let me pass it to you guys. What's your final thoughts from tonight's conversation, and how can people find you? Let me start with the ladies. Let's start with you. Tui, final thoughts. Tui, always thank you for being on the podcast. What's your final thoughts, and how can people find you too?
I'm just glad I was on time today. Please don't look for me on social media. I don't need all that. But Polynesian style, whoever you are, I was cracking up at your fucking comments. Fuck you. I'm glad we can come on here and have this discussion, and we can agree to disagree, and then everyone's still cool afterwards. These topics, I feel like, I mean, it's not that they're all the same, but we can say what we want. But at the end, you know, it really does start individually. And within the Polynesian community, we know that, you know, there's a lot of socially accepted norms that we obviously all have to break. But I don't know if, like, the 30 and up generation is gonna I feel like they're gonna have a harder time breaking it. I think it's 28 and below that we really have to help, because for some reason that particular group age range, I'm super concerned about the way that with how things are going on social media, the way they're dating, the way they don't know how to interact socially face to face. I mean, that's honestly who we should really have on there, because as far as our age range goes, I mean, we can talk about like what the problems are and how we'll resolve them, but I think our main focus should really be the people younger than us. I mean, you know, we're still gonna obviously like take the time to have these discussions and talk about what we can do, and you know, take each other's advice and implement it in our own lives. But I think the younger generation can really benefit from everything we've already gone over. Just, that's it. Don't find me on social media, any of you.
All right, no worries. All right, regardless, I'm gonna drop the link for it so you can find her. No worries. Thank you, Tui. Pass it to you. Salote, final thoughts, and how can people find you, Salote?
Well, thank you, Will, for allowing me to be on here and be vulnerable. Thank you to each and every single one of you guys. I get to take away always something from you guys every single time I get the chance to sit down and just have this moment. But as far as anything with why are Pacific Islanders marriage failing in 2022, I hope that we continue something on with this, because I yeah, I hope we continue this topic because I think it's a more broader than just communication and vulnerability, and so yeah, I just appreciate this. It was a lot that was covered on here. I kind of like just to watch Palofesa go at it with other people. I had my popcorn on the side, but thank you guys all so much for just having me on, and thank you everybody who's in the chats. Y'all are crazy as always, Will. You got some crazy people on your chats, but other than that, I just appreciate all of your guys' outlook on everything with vulnerability. Hopefully this was like something to somebody out there. Hopefully it meant something or somebody took away something from what we all talked about. So yeah, appreciate you guys.
All right. No worries. Always a pleasure, Salote. Let me pass it to you, Underground Rose. Underground Rose, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for the open discourse conversation. But yeah, what's your final thoughts and how can people find you, Underground Rose?
I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook under Underground Roads. I like to play the devil's advocate and like to make people think I'm the person that breaks the norm. So I'm sorry if I'm bringing some controversy here with you guys too.
We love you, Irene.
We love you, Tui.
No worries, Underground Rose. Rose, you already know, controversy is the norm. That's normal here on the podcast. All right, thank you so much. I pass it to you, Rose Hungry Samoan. Final thoughts and how can people find you?
I just want to say thank you all for being here and having this discussion, and thank you, Will. And I'm not going to say anything other than that. You can find me on Instagram at Hungry Samoans, and all you guys out there in the chat. It was fun chatting with you all. That's it.
All right, no worries. Thank you so much, Hungry Samoan Rose. And I see on the live chat, Polynesian South said, "Nah, we love you, Rhodes, Underground Rhodes." Oh, thank you for showing us the love. Let me pass it to the fellas. I'll start with you guys. Final thoughts, how can people find you? Savage, final thoughts on how can people find you, Savage?
Find me on TikTok. Just TikTok. Right now, I don't. After this conversation, I don't believe Pacific Islander marriages are failing in 2022. I believe we're growing. Right? That's what's going on. Whether you're single parent, you're divorced, or going through one. Look, listen. The point is, are you growing? What are you learning? What are you going through? Right? I don't want to highlight failing because it sounds like a dead end. Are you growing? So there's that. But I'm highly irritated right now. I'm disappointed within myself because there's a handful of people in this world who can make me eat my words. I'm a master of my words. I'm good at vernacular grammar usage, vocabulary overall. I'm good at the English vernacular. And Palofesa managed to do something that only a handful of people could do, and that's make me eat my words. So, like little brothers do, man. I'm so fucking pissed. But where I come from, we call that getting checked, and I got checked today. So with that being said, I tip my hat to my younger brother, Palofesa, but I'm fucking fuming right now, bro. Oh, that makes me mad.
All right, no worries. Hey, that's what we do here, man. That's what we do on the God Cloud podcast. Savage, always a welcome. I'll pass it to you, Malachi. What's your final thoughts? I feel like Malachi, you wanted to say something, but you didn't want to get it off your chest real quick. Maybe this is the opportunity. Get it out, bro. Get it out. Throw it out.
Nah, I really ain't got nothing but to say. But man, I appreciate the panel. I appreciate everybody that tuned into this and was able to share thoughts. To the youngsters out there, man, we're just gonna try to lead by example, and that's all that we can do. And if you could do the same, that's how we break the chain, right? So right now we're just we're just trying to figure it out. We jump on the panel, we try to figure it out. We soak up knowledge from everybody else's opinion, and it's either we take it or leave it. If it works for me, it works for me. If it doesn't, then I'm just gonna leave it to the side. So but yeah, I appreciate it. If you guys want to look for me, you can find me on Instagram, Tribalfit Strong. Pretty new to the social media network, but still trying to figure it out. But hope to see you guys. And like I said, man, I appreciate Will for this. And yeah, I appreciate it.
No worries, Malachi. Thank you so much. I always appreciate you being on the podcast. And definitely check out his content. A lot of good motivational content on his IG. I'll pass it to you, Ness. Ness, final thoughts. Thank you for jumping on as a public guest. Hope you're not too emotional right now, but what's your final thoughts? How can people find you?
Yeah, man, I'm over here crying and stuff, man. Gotta chill out with that. No, but real quick, just to pay some bills, man. Will, thank you so much for opening up this platform for people like me. Coming out of straight from your comment section on to be able to have these conversations. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is, for a majority of us, if not all of us on this panel, we're first American generation Polynesians, or wherever you're at outside of our parents' heritage. So it's our duty, right? It's our duty to make sure that we have these types of conversations that our parents have never had with us, or the conversations that we were too scared to have with our parents or grandparents. So to be able to have this open forum and to open it up to everybody, we now have control, like Malachi said, to teach our younger generation. It's up to us, because now we see everything that went wrong, or we have to now adapt. That's what it is. Sorry. We now have the opportunity to adapt to society, to where we live in, versus to where our parents lived at, to come over here. So what we know now, we can pass it on to the younger generation, and they can keep moving forward and keep moving forward. Where you can find me having long walks on the beach, candlelight dinners. That's me being vulnerable. There you go. No. I'm on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, all your favorite social media stuff. Look me up. I have a podcast coming out dealing with foster care in the Polynesian perspectives. It's called For the Culture. That's going to be coming out in 2023. So, Will, please forgive me if I wasn't supposed to shout that out, but I just had to throw it out there. It's another form of communication for all of our Polynesian parents that are in the foster care system. If they need that extra resource or they need that extra help, there's a community out there for them. So thank you all. Malo.
No worries. Thank you so much, Ness. And also give a shout out to you, Ness, man. Thank you for taking the courage to come on from the live chat to the open conversation. I know a lot of people stay in the live chat, talk a big game on the live chat, but they can't talk a big game when you come in face to face and have a real conversation. So shout out to you. Be the example. All the people in the live chat. Hey, Ness out here doing big things, to come on here. I hope I encourage some of you guys, some more men and women in the live chat, to come on and have this real conversation. So shout out to you, Ness, man. And last but not least, I think the professor. No, one. I think John was asking. He didn't know that you're the Palofesa meant professor, because he said you sound like a professor, but he didn't know that that word literally to translation is professor. But Palofesa, thank you so much. Final thoughts, and then we'll conclude the podcast with that.
Man, I always enjoy these sessions, being able to chop it up with everyone who's got differing opinions. What I do want to ask is borrow a bit of your time, everyone who is listening, and use your imaginations. And this is how I'm going to describe what vulnerability is to me and who I endeavor to be as a man. Imagine the man that you love, for you women, and imagine yourself, men, as you are, completely naked, and the person that you love the most in the world as your partner. And you're quivering, shaking, and putting your hand out. Join me on this journey. Now put that in reverse and imagine yourself completely naked, still exposed, but you're saying, look, here's who I am. Let's go explore. Which would you rather pick? And this is how I see vulnerability. I would choose the latter. All day, every day. Masculinity for me is never overbearing. Being strong is never tiring. It is my responsibility to be this man for the wife and the children that I bear. It will never get tiring. I'll leave that with you. Love you all.
All right, no worries. All right, thank you so much, Palofesa. And everybody in the live chat, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We host this every single Wednesday, so you do get notification. We do go live every single Wednesday. But we have come to the end. Appreciate you guys one more time. And shout out to the panel. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this conversation. And like Ness said, trying to make a difference to our generation, for our future, and taking that responsibility on our backs and on our shoulders. But nevertheless, you guys, everybody have a great now. Shout out to you guys. Peace, y'all. Peace.